Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 36th installment of the Bobby Couto Show. You know why you're here.
Woke up this morning with the sunshine in my eyes. All the clouds are gone and took the rain.
We got some special guests today.
I can't believe the way I feel about the day.
For those of you who know,
All the bad is gone.
this is the latest hit, Because You Love Me, by the famous Joe Exotic.
Reasons I can point to, and all that I can.
Who's not watching Tiger King?
'Cause you love
I know somebody.
me, because you love.
Well, let's let the cat out of the bag, right? Let's let the cat out of the bag. Guys, let me introduce to the show today Mr. Joe Costa, very close personal friend. I've known Joan for quite a long time. And welcome back to the show, Mr. Steve Silvestre, who was on episode 27 on Second Thought. Gentlemen, welcome.
Hey,
Great,
good to
guys.
be here again.
Right. I'm so glad to hear your voice, Steve. I know it's been a while, brother. We talked about it on the last podcast. I know you actually even talked about, maybe doing a podcast and getting something started. And, of course, Corona happened. And obviously with that, the whole world changed. And here we are kind of just sitting still waiting for something to change. And day to day, we expect that, maybe we're going to get something new. Something's going to break. But it just seems like it's the same thing day in and day out. Right, Joe? Right?
Exactly.
So listen, guys, if you don't know, I used to work with both Steve and Joe. We met at Comcast. It was a matter of fact, I think it was a job fair, right, guys? You guys came in on a job fair at the same time, right?
Yeah, applied online and got a call pretty much the next day.
Yeah, and then you guys came in. I remember we did the interview. We hired both of you guys, and it was like family ever since, right? I mean, you guys are still working together. You're both at Comcast. You're both still working together. Do you guys work on the same teams, or you guys work on opposite teams now?
Different teams now.
Oh,
yeah, we're
okay.
on opposite teams. He's North End, I'm South End.
Of New Bedford.
Correct. New Bedford, yeah.
Oh, nice. And they still, obviously, you guys are still working. Are you still pulling the same amount of work that you were before, or have they alleviated some of the load? I know this is a touchy subject, but considering the situation, right, have they alleviated some of the...
That's the funniest thing I've heard all day. So they changed business rules,
Yeah.
and they changed it for the worst, honestly.
Really?
Because now we're doing everything twice.
But so
Yeah,
just so I get this right, it all started first with Dial soap, right? They gave you guys some soap, and I mean, I don't want to get too this isn't like
No. It wasn't. No. Dial soap would have made sense. No. They gave us dish soap. Yeah, dish soap.
Oh, they give you dish soap, antibacterial, of course.
Dawn.
I imagine, right?
Oh,
Dawn.
they did give us the good stuff.
Well, it's safe for the ducklings, isn't it? The ducklings that
Right.
get like oil and
Right.
stuff. Not that safe for them.
Yeah.
How about masks? They're giving you guys
Apparently
like
it's safe
masks.
for the jackasses too.
How about masks? Are you guys getting masks?
They gave us some masks, but now they gave us pretty much tablecloth masks.
Oh, really?
Like if you went to a fancy dinner,
Really?
Yeah.
pretty much.
That's rough. That's rough.
Some of us got bandanas too, that are paper thin.
Yeah.
Some I didn't even get that. So
Really?
yeah. It is what
That's
it
a
is.
tough. I get it. Not that I would ever take sides, and I would. Well, I would take sides, but in this case, I would never stick. In other words, I would never stick up for Comcast. But I mean, how do you? I don't know, man. How would you manage it? Like, if I was to ask you guys, what would you do differently? What would you do that they're not doing that you think could help you, do your job or feel like you're being safe while doing your job?
Either get us the proper PPE, 95 masks. They got us gloves. We get hand sanitizer now. It's mainly the masks. It's tough to come by.
Yeah,
Right.
Right.
I've been getting my own. I've got my own surgical mask. But I'm fortunate enough to get them.
But you would
So
think,
I
guys,
use
you would
them.
think Comcast, like we're talking $1 bazillion here, guys, right? That they would be able to
Oh,
get
yeah.
this stuff, right? I don't know. I mean, is it just me? I mean, I would think that they could get it, right? I mean, who's got more money than Comcast? I mean, you got connections all over the world. You would think that they could say, hey, I need, 100,000 masks for my people, and that way at least you guys have some proper PPE to go out there and do your jobs. Even if you're not going to provide them, not force or make people go into environments they're not feeling safe. I mean, again, it's not what the podcast is about today, guys. I just really wanted to bring that up because I want people to appreciate the sacrifices that both of you are making. You know what I mean? Not just you guys, but everybody that's getting in a van every day and going out there and providing, these services to people, because, without you guys, I mean, everybody's home, right? Without internet. And I keep saying it, and I've mentioned it a couple of times. Like, what do you do, right? You got kids. You're trying to teach your kids, or do the homeschooling. And a lot of these schools are doing this stuff at home without that internet service, right? But, again, I would say it's just as important as having electricity, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, Steve, I'll ask you. I mean, do you see are people grateful for the services that you guys are providing, or is it kind of like people are expecting you to show up and people are expecting you to do what you're doing?
No, people expect you to come in and do. So it's kind of a long story. So they changed things so that we're not supposed to be going into people's houses. At least that's what they're saying, right?
Yeah.
So we're doing what they call home drop-offs. So we activate everything outside. We hand the customer a bag full of equipment and instructions on how to activate it. Problem is, a lot of our customers can't do that, right? Like you have elderly customers that can't work a remote, never mind install a cable box.
That's totally fair.
Right? So,
totally fair.
So I mean, we're not supposed to be going to people's houses. Then they change the rules and they say, oh, well, you have to go in for the primary box and the modem, right? Mm-hmm. But then they're setting up. I mean, I did a job the other day where I went to a lady's house because it said TV's all out, right? I get there and her DTA in her kitchen's not working. And I'm like, well, what the hell am I doing here? Like, I'm not supposed to be here, But
that's more par for the course. That's the way it's been. I mean, let's just tell the truth. It's been like that for a very long time. How many times were you working, the late shift, right? You got the 7 o'clock shift and you're getting a call for an out of service and you get there and the TV in the bedroom isn't working. You know what I mean? How many times does that happen?
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
All the time. You get called out for remote issues. You know what I mean? It's stupid stuff like that. And it'll never change. Yeah. The problem is, because they're doing these home drop-offs, they feel as though you can do twice as much work in the same amount of time. But they still want you to climb the pole, check the drop, do a scan, do this, do that. And then, so in the morning, this is the thing that I find completely silly. In the morning, I'm dropping off equipment to a house. And then in the afternoon, I'm going back to that same house to do the install.
Right.
Why not, why not just let me do the install?
Yeah, just one person.
If we're going to do it, then just let us do it.
Right. Why have multiple people going to one place? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I mean, think about it. Now you're rolling 2 trucks when you could have just rolled 1. Like, they're screwing themselves.
Now, listen, I can only say this. I know this. I say this from experience. Like it was already difficult enough to do this job or do the job that you guys do with people in normal circumstances. Because let's just be truthful and honest here. And I got the explicit, label on the podcast, and I could say it. People are just fucking disgusting, right? I mean, let's just say this what it is. There are people out there that are absolutely disgusting. They don't clean their houses. There's shit all over the place. I can't even tell you. I remember as vivid if it was yesterday, how many times I kneeled down at the TV set and then I get up and my knee is soaking wet from either cat piss or dog piss. You know what I mean? Right? Like those.
Well, that never happens. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right? So already dealing with those kind of things. And then, of course, now you bring this whole corona factor into it. I mean, I would imagine it's got to be to the point where the stress level's got to be over the top, Joe. I mean, I would imagine that even at this point, are you stressing it to the point where you're saying, man, can I do this every day? Or are you able to, at the end of the day, to be like, you know what, fuck it, it's my day, I'm done, my family's my family, I'm moving on.
It's stressful.
Because you're going home, right? You're going home to your family every day, right?
Rules. Well, here's the thing. So they put these rules into play. They changed the policy, and you're supposed to just go. They vaguely tell you in an email or what you're supposed to do for a drop and go. Mm-hmm. And then you ask around and you ask one supervisor, he'll tell you one way, another supervisor will tell you another way. It's stressful because one of them will say, hey, you're supposed to go in for a drop off. You go in, make sure the outlet is active, and then give the customer the equipment. Yeah. In the email, it says just drop, the boxes. Yeah. Go outside, make sure everything's good, clean, and that there's an active outlet going into the home or apartment. And that's what we're doing. Yeah. But now they're telling us you got to go in and make sure there's an active outlet. So what is it? Am I going in or am I not going in? Yeah. Yeah. It's stressful.
Right.
There.
Right. So you're trying to make that decision on the spot based on what you see, right? Do these people look sick? Could they be sick? Are they not sick? Right. Are people at least wearing masks when you go to the home? Are they at least wearing?
Some are. Yeah. Some will actually respect you and stay away, and then there's some that it's just right there, and it's like, dude, please, can
Just
you
back
please
up a little
back up
bit.
a little bit?
Right, right.
Yeah, it's like respect a little space here. Like,
Right, right.
But yeah, I mean, what I've been doing now is I've been activating this stuff in my truck and calling the customer.
Smart.
Hey, listen, I got a I got a TV in my truck. I got the box. If I can run me a 50-foot outlet and get up on the pole or on the side of the house.
Yeah. Oh, that's
I can
smart. So
activate
now,
everything there.
so when you give the customer the piece of equipment, it's already activated.
It's all active.
Oh,
all they need to do is find the outlet in the house.
See, now that's
whichever one they
smart.
want to use.
That's smart to me. I find that very smart. Like that's
the way I do it.
Right, and that's
You know, not
what, maybe
everybody
that's
does
what
it.
everybody else should be doing. And you know what? Quite honestly, maybe they should give you guys an extra couple of minutes to do that. Right? That would make sense to
Oh
me.
no, that's the other stressful part about it is you'll have two drop and goes, but this is what they call them, drop and go, in the same time frame. Now, not all your drop and goes are going to go 15, 20 minutes.
Right.
Like I said, if I can't get access to, say I got to park down the street and get to the next customer's house and I can't get up to the pole, I can't activate the stuff. So what I do is I hand the customer the stuff and I say, and I got it all hooked up for them in the bag with the splitters and everything's plugged in. Here you go, plug it into your outlet.
Yeah.
And I'll call you and we'll activate it over the phone.
And then you're like,
right, but sometimes they have trouble. Yeah, exactly. They have trouble sometimes, and it doesn't take. They expect it, 25 minutes, a half hour to be there. No,
right.
Sometimes I'm there for just an internet and a box, and I'm there an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Joe, and Steve, right? How many new installs? You would think by now that everybody has it, or is it this? Steve? Is this the reoccurring customers, the ones that have satellite 1 week, and then right, whoever's around?
Yeah, a lot of them are. And then the other thing is Comcast is giving everything away for free, right? So even the internet essentials, like the really slow speed internet that's supposed to be offered to family, like low income families, they have to qualify for free lunch and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
They're giving that stuff away for free now. I literally installed internet essentials in a Comcast salesperson's house the other day. Well, now everybody's getting it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous. And then you expect these customers to not pick up a satellite line and plug it into their modem, and then it doesn't work. And then so it comes back in as a failed self-install kit. So then you go out there and there's no drop hitting the house, or there's a drop but it's not for that apartment. And all their lines are going to satellite because they have satellite. So, like, how do you expect these customers to do it?
And then you got to tap it. Doesn't have enough ports, and you got to reach out to your network tech and try to get him out there to upgrade the
Good luck
tap.
with that.
Right. Hey guys, let me ask you. Listen, just shifting gears a little bit. Are you guys hearing anything about 5G? Is Comcast are they talking about 5G? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, if you look at the stats of 5G, I know that people are concerned about it, about the medical harm that it can cause. But at the end of the day, the speeds that you're able to transmit over that 5G signal, when you really think about it, is there going to be a need for the wire to the home, or is the 5G going to be like, hey, this is it? I don't need to. Why would I have a cable coming to my house if I can stream at a gig? I mean, that's what I pay for now. Comcast, I pay for a gig service at my house. If I can get a gig down, a gig up, then why would I want wired service? Is Comcast talking about that with you guys, or is it null and void?
No, the only thing I've heard about 5G is the fact that in South Boston, in that FMA, half of the FMA left to go work for the company that's doing 5G.
Wow, no kidding.
In Boston, because they're paying them like $10 more an hour or whatever the hell it was.
Right.
So Comcast lost a bunch of guys up in Boston, but nobody's doing 5G down here yet. Like,
but it's a matter. I would imagine it's a matter of time, guys. But by the time, you know what I mean? Like, it always starts in the bigger cities, and then it kind of branches out from there. And you would imagine, given the certain circumstances right now, how people are home, if you were in that business of putting towers up, wouldn't now be the time to do that, right? I mean, there's nobody out there, right? I mean, you hire people, they're working for you, and like you have no traffic, you've got nothing to worry about because there's nobody around.
Right.
Yeah, now would be the time, but I haven't heard of anything down in this area being done.
Kidding. But you know what? At the end of the day, guys, it all comes down to money. And today, I actually checked the stats of Corona. I like to check daily and like to stay on top of, what's going on in the world. And as of today, guys, confirmed cases of Corona, 1,320,000. 4,000 per million. That's the count right now. 183,000 recovered, and 78,322 people have died. And in that time, over the past 2 months, Congress has approved over $2.4 trillion to try to combat the crisis. The first bill was $8 billion. The second was $192 billion. The third was 1.7 trillion. And the fourth, 183 billion. And the reason I bring this up, guys, and I'll open the floor to both of you guys, this is an obscene amount of money. It's coming from somewhere. We all agree it's coming from somewhere. And if it's coming from the Federal Reserve, obviously we know that's borrowed money. How do you see, or do you see us ever getting back to where we were before? How can we generate the revenue as a country back to where it was? I mean, at this point, they're saying we're at about $4 trillion in debt in comparison to prior to the coronavirus. How do you guys see us getting out of this? I mean, is this, seriously, when you think about it, like the monumental task, how do you do that when the doors are closed and you can't go back to work?
Clearly, it's
right?
all borrowed money, right? Somebody's going to pay it back.
Oh, absolutely. And China's going to get the interest for it. I mean, we all know that.
I don't know. Going back to your numbers there, your coronavirus numbers there, right?
Yep.
At what percentage of that do you believe is inflated? Because I know for a fact that the numbers are definitely inflated.
Yes.
There are people dying of other things
yes.
that are being associated with COVID-19 deaths, which is not the truth.
Right.
I think these numbers are all being inflated in order to scare the public. And I'm not about the whole conspiracy theory thing, right? The government did it, blah, blah, whatever. These numbers are inflated. People are getting paid off for these numbers to be.
Just so you know, not to cut you off, but just so you know, the hospitals right now are getting $13,000 per patient with corona, and I believe $39,000 if they're put on a ventilator. That's what the government will pay. That's what the government will pay.
Yeah, something in that. Yes, I have heard.
Yep.
And then the whole shutdown thing. Like we've shut down the economy here for 2 months.
Yep.
And the whole point of that was to kill the curve, right, and bring the numbers down, and then we could open it up. What's funny is I told you earlier, I was talking to a buddy today. It was actually a friend I have in Taunton, who, I don't know if you guys remember, but Morton Hospital brought in a bunch of nurses from different states that weren't as impacted, right?
Yes.
They brought in all these nurses for whatever period of time.
Yep.
They're now gone.
Yep.
And Morton, from what I hear, I haven't checked this out myself, but the person that told me is pretty reliable, so I'm just going to say it.
Sure.
I hear now Morton Hospital is laying people off.
Yes.
Because the numbers that they expected did not appear.
Right, and I can confirm that because I know someone near and dear to me who works for that medical group, and it was told to me that at first initial cause, once the coronavirus became known, the Morton Hospital, because it did not have pediatrics, they became an official COVID-19 hospital. So the idea was if you were diagnosed with COVID-19, if you were in the area, you would go to Morton Hospital and they would treat it for COVID-19. Of course, the goal behind that was they want all the $13,000 bodies to come in the building. That's what the
absolutely.
But like to your point, Steve, that never happened. I don't know that we never got to the populace that could drive that machine. You know what I mean? The idea that they were going to make all this money. And you're right. A lot of those nurses, they just got booted and nothing, bro. Nothing. I don't even know what Morton Hospital is doing. And
so now it happens. What's happening is all the people that we had begged not to go to the hospital, or all the what they consider non-essential things that we would normally have going on in that hospital are not happening.
Right.
So now we have a bunch of empty rooms.
Yes.
And we're laying off nurses.
Yes.
Just like here in the city of New Bedford, right? The mayor so there was a couple of nursing homes up here in New Bedford that had shut down, right? Up here, far north end here up in Sassaquin.
Yeah.
They had shut down this nursing home, and the mayor made a deal with the owner that they were going to use that to house COVID-19 patients, right? They opened it up. They did all this stuff. There's no patients.
Nothing.
There's nothing. They opened up a field hospital in the auditorium of UMass Dartmouth, right? It was going to be a COVID-19 field hospital. Nothing happened. But
let me ask you, hold on a second. Let me ask you, is there still a possibility that those spaces could be utilized? I mean, if you look, again, and I mentioned it in the last podcast, Steve, nothing has really changed, right, man? Like when you think about the science behind what we're dealing with here, there hasn't been a breakthrough or some medical breakthrough that has changed us and the way that we move around. Like the coronavirus is still out there. People are still getting sick. It's very highly contagious, but yet we're starting to move in that forward direction. Do we expect that there may be this second wave that everybody's talking about? Do you think that
there's not only going to be a second wave, there's going to be a third and a fourth wave.
So do you think that those spaces will be used then? Like, is that, because I mean, I agree with you, Steve. Like,
see, I don't, and I'm going to tell you why I don't. And again, I'm no scientist, right? I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm not an infectious disease person, right? Like, that's not what I do. But I think it's all being blown out of proportion. Is it contagious? Yes. Does it exist? Yes. Are people dying from it? Yes. But you have to realize the people that are dying from it are unfortunately, they're the older generation.
Right.
Right?
Right.
That already have underlying conditions.
Yes.
Even the young people that are dying, they're dying because they have underlying conditions that this potentially makes worse.
So let me challenge that, Steve, by asking you this question. Do you not feel the fear of infecting one of those people? So for example, you go out, you happen to come across it, you didn't have a mask on, and you somehow contract the coronavirus, and then you come in contact with someone who may be older and have some of those underlying conditions, and you're actually the reason or cause why they get it. See, to me, that's the part that I struggle with. I mean, I'm not so concerned about me as I am about the people around me, like my mom, you know what I mean? Like a lot of these elderly people. So that, to me, I guess that's where they get me. You know what I mean? They're not getting me on the concern that I may die. I'm more concerned that I may infect someone. You know what I'm saying?
Well, no, I understand that. But what that comes down to is those people are the ones that need to, I don't want to say self-quarantine because they're not sick, so they don't quarantine. They're the ones that need to self-isolate, right? They're the ones that need to stay home as much as possible. Clearly, they need groceries. They need to go out. They need whatever, doctor's appointments. They need to go places. But those are the people that they're the ones that need to be wearing masks. Right? Because even, you know what, there's even research that's coming out now that the media is not reporting on. There's actual research coming out now that says that the masks are actually making things worse.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Than they're making better.
Well, see, and that was part of, it's funny, you led me right into it. Like, if anybody's, I mean, unless you live under a rock, and I know you guys don't, this documentary, Plandemic, that has recently, hit the airwaves. So just to give you guys a real quick, and this is great segue, Steve. Social media networks are scrambling to get rid of the viral conspiracy video. It's spreading false claims about coronavirus. According to the report, that roughly 26-minute pandemic movie, it's saying that you can get sick from your own mask. And what they're saying is they don't want this video to be on any social media because they don't want people to get the wrong idea. So the doctor, Judy Makovitz, that's the doctor that's on. Yeah, she's on that. And, I hate to say it, man, she sounds legit. I mean, but again, you don't know because you're only getting one side of the story. But she talks about Dr. Fauci. She talks about Bill Gates. She talks about these patents. I mean, the idea, guys, I'm going to, listen, call me crazy. I just don't know. Maybe I'm just not smart enough to know. But I didn't know you could have a patent on a virus. I mean, I guess after the fact, it makes sense to me. Like,
wait, no. He doesn't have a patent on a virus. He has a patent on the vaccine.
Right. But the government, the United States government, has the patent for coronavirus. They actually have a patent. They have a legitimate patent for the coronavirus. I mean, how crazy is that?
I'm not following that. Like, how do you?
So you're in a lab, right?
A patent on what? You have to have a patent on something physical, right?
So you're in the lab, right? You and I work in a lab. And every day, all day, we work on these different viruses, right? So what they're actually doing is they're manipulating these viruses and trying different things and different ways of affecting the virus. To, again, it's just a constant research. Right. Yeah. So once they create one, if you didn't know this, but even like the bird flu, H1N1, the government, the lab actually has, you guys can Google this is true, the government actually has, once they develop that virus, they actually have a patent for that virus. And to me, that's absolutely crazy. I didn't know that was a possibility because, like you, Steve, I think, gee, if I'm gonna have a patent, it needs to be something tangible. You know what I mean? Like I would think that it would be something tangible. But in this case, the actual formula for a virus is patented by the U.S. government.
Well, I guess if you think about it, that is tangible, right? Because
because it's in a lab, it's in a tube.
I'm sure the Chinese government has some sort of patent on this too.
$3.7 million, guys. Dr. Fauci just sent over $3.7 million to the Wuhan laboratory where technically, or this virus came from. This is, guys, and to your point, Steve, you said it earlier, I'm not a conspiracy guy. I'm not. I'm just looking at all this information that seems to be just avalanching at everyone right now. And when you start hearing these things, and, I hate to say it, maybe 100% of it isn't true, but maybe 90% of it is, right? So, so now the U.S. government owns a patent for corona. Dr. Fauci is the guy who's developing the vaccine. And then somehow Bill Gates comes out of nowhere. What the fuck has Bill Gates got to do with this, guys?
Funding it.
He's funding it.
Right? Like, where does he come from?
He's funding it. He's investing in it. He's investing in
See what I'm
research.
saying? Right? Like, why would he be involved?
Right, so that when this vaccine comes out, you can line his pockets with the profit.
Jeez, man.
The same thing. So you were just talking about that girl, that woman that worked for Fauci at the time.
Yeah, Judy Makovitz.
See, I suck with names, so
Yeah.
I can't. I remember that. But so if you did watch it, I watched part of that.
Yep.
I didn't get a chance to watch
I
the whole
watched
thing.
it, man. I watched it.
I watched the beginning part of it where she's saying that, one, he stole the treatment for
Yes.
HIV.
Yes.
He stole it, and then when he stole it, he sat on it for 3 or 4 months
Yes.
before he even released it so that he could get the patent on it.
Yes.
And now he's a multimillionaire.
So
You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of shady shit going on, and it's always the people at the head of this that are behind it. So this guy is, he's the head of research for the coronavirus. Isn't that convenient?
have you guys watched the Dallas Buyers Club? Did you see that movie with Matthew McConaughey?
Yeah.
That movie is specifically exactly about that. It's about how they held that HIV drug for so long and millions of people died because they would not, the FDA would not approve the drug because they couldn't make money with it. I mean, it's just imagine. And I asked that question, guys, and I'll ask you, you talk about a guy like Bill Gates. If there's one thing we could all say with certainty that Bill Gates does not need, it's money, right?
Money.
Seriously, right? So I ask you this question, guys. Why? Why would he do this? What is it, man? What is it?
Well, because I think we discussed this the other night when we were setting this all up. Was I think Joe might have asked it or somebody asked it. Like, what's the point? Because because money is power. It's not about the money because he has more money than he could ever spend. He could literally spend millions of dollars every day, and never spend all his money. That's not the point. It's money is power.
Jeez, man.
And that's what they want. They want the power. These people, they're all about, a one government. It's crazy, man.
And you know what Steve? You know what I would contradict that, but I can't. And the reason I can't is because when I think about historically, when you look at some of these people that have taken advantage, when I think of like the Bernie Madoffs of the world, the guy swindled $58 billion from his investors. $58 billion. And the one question I ask myself is, at $1 billion, you weren't satisfied? At $2 billion, you weren't satisfied? You had to go for $58 billion? So I have to agree with you, Steve, and say it's got to be more than the money, right? It's got to be... There's got to be something else that these guys are just horny for, that they need to have it, and it's the power. It would have to be the power.
That's the only thing I could think of. That's the only explanation I have.
It's amazing, and I know we could probably talk about this for most of the day, but if you haven't had a chance to, and I'll reach out to the audience and say, Plandemic. If you guys can find it, it keeps getting removed. And you can form your own opinions. I always believe that there's two sides to every story, and somewhere in the middle there's the truth. But it's really, to me, it's really all about getting the information. You could do with it what you want, but at least you're informed and you know what's going on out there. So anybody out there, if you have a chance, do your own research. Yeah, do your own research. Go check it out, watch it, and see what you think. To me, Steve, I'm glad you brought up the whole HIV thing with Dr. Fauci, because that really, for me, that's really what solidified it. Because I remember. I was young enough, but still old enough to remember that whole HIV epidemic, how that all went out with Ryan White. It was dirty blood, and that's how that kid got it. And people thought it was a gay disease, and it wasn't a gay disease. They had it isolated in France, and it got out of France. Like, all of those things happened, and I remember all of that. And so for me, knowing that, and then going into this, I'm like, gee, man, that could be that could be true. It could be real. And how crazy would that be that here we are almost 80,000 souls later, and it's all about power. It's all about having power,
Absolutely.
right? And so speaking of power, let's talk about, something near and dear to me. Up until recently, guys, I don't know about you, but I know Joe is good with this, but Steve, I'm not sure about you, buddy. I was looking like the caveman from the Geico commercial. Like, I had hair growing out my ears, my nose, like hair everywhere. And fortunately, I would never out my sources here, but I was fortunate enough that I was able to get my hair clipped by someone near and dear to me, and I look back to normal. But recently, if you don't know, this Shelly Luther, the owner of Salon a la Mode in Dallas County, have you guys heard about this? She decided that she was going to open, right? She was going to open her salon. She opened her salon, and then here they come. They find her. She continued to and then, of course, they arrested her. She goes to court, just to kind of give everybody a quick update. And then this Judge Eric Moe, who's actually up for election in November, just keep that in mind, she turns around and goes in, and he wants her to apologize for opening, and she refuses. And her rebuttal was, I have to feed my family, and I am also responsible for staff in my building who also need to feed their families. So we decided that we were going to open. So in all of this, just so you guys are aware, she wasn't arrested for opening the store. Her actual charge was contempt of court because she refused to apologize to the judge.
Right. And if that's not a person being power hungry,
right,
I don't know what is.
Right.
So had she just said, you know what, Judge, I apologize for whatever it is you're charging me with. I apologize. He would have said, okay, here's your fine.
Yep.
Have a nice day.
Yep.
But because she refused to bow down and kiss the ring, she was arrested.
Yes.
And she was put in jail.
Well said, sir.
How can you apologize? You can't apologize for trying to feed your family.
Absolutely. Between the three of us, guys, I don't think she did anything wrong.
The judge wants you to, right?
Right.
Yeah, but that's abuse, like you said, abuse of power. That he's going.
That's the thing, Joe.
He's not
we give
following
these people,
the law.
Yeah, we give these people.
He's following his personal belief.
Right.
We give these people too much power. That's the problem.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. And then the governor didn't do anything until the Supreme Court, the Texas Supreme Court, got involved, and they demanded and ordered her release on Thursday. So they ended up releasing her from jail. Which was, again, guys, we're looking at this stuff from the outside. It's all the show. You know what I mean? This is the first person doing it. Like, no one knew who this woman, Shelly Luther, was until this happened. But so this is the show, and we're all watching it, and the Supreme Court gets involved and says, hey, wait a minute. You can't do this. Like, obviously, to Steve's point, this is abuse of power, and you cannot arrest this woman. And they did release her. But just so you guys know, somebody started a GoFundMe page for her. Right now, her GoFundMe page, $450,000, guys.
Good for her.
Right?
I think it's a lot more. I think it's more than that. I think it's over 500.
I think it may be at this point where, like, when I did the research for the show, it was already up to 450,000. I'm like, imagine that people would donate, and it's up to $450,000. And let's not forget here, she's got a wrongful suitcase here. She shouldn't have been arrested. So, the lawyers are all over it, and guess what?
That honestly, that judge may not be up for re-election. He may be facing charges.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned, he should be facing charges.
I agree.
Isn't it pathetic? Let's think about this, right? This is America, right? This is the America where we're releasing pedophiles back into society because we don't want them to catch a virus in jail.
And
but we're arresting, but we are arresting law-abiding citizens who did nothing more than try and earn an honest living by opening up their own business. What?
Yeah.
What kind of fucking America do we live in?
That doesn't make any sense.
Tell me, what America is this?
How?
We're releasing criminals, but yet putting somebody in because they won't apologize.
Right. So I'm not sure if this is everywhere, guys, but we can talk about it. So the idea is this, and you guys can maybe enlighten me a little bit because I didn't research it, but from what I understand, they're releasing prisoners because they have corona.
No. They're releasing them so that they can reduce the population so that they won't. So like, what they consider low-level offenders would be released.
Would a pedophile be considered would a pedophile be considered a low-level offender?
Apparently, because they're being released.
Yeah. Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable.
Rapists.
Absolutely. Hey, how about the one in California that got released and then came out and he ended up. He killed a bunch of people.
That was almost instantly.
He killed the person that put him in jail. Yeah,
right.
He killed the
person. Yeah, it was like it was like a day later, the next day.
Yeah.
So, you know what? Back to your point, Steve. Again, the judge should be held accountable. How are these judges not held accountable, or whoever it is, maybe whether it be the magistrate, whether it be the warden, whoever is pardoning these people and letting them out of jail, they should be held personally responsible, right?
I completely agree.
I mean, seriously.
You know what? It goes. So let's. You want to talk about prisoners? You want to talk about prisoners? We'll talk about Bristol County House of Correction over here, right? Sheriff Hodgson.
Yeah. There was an event this week, right? There was an event that took place.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So he has a unit, an ICE detention unit, right? So there's a bunch of, I will not call them illegal immigrants. They are not immigrants. They are illegal aliens. They are criminals. They are here illegally. Fair. I don't care how many people I piss off when I say this.
No, it's fair.
They are here illegally. They're not citizens. They're not immigrants. They did not immigrate here.
Right.
They
got in illegally.
Illegally.
Yes, I agree.
I don't care. Yep. Whether you overstayed a visa or you crossed the border or you swam across I don't care.
Right.
You're here illegally.
Yes.
So now we're all worried about people getting the coronavirus. So he has 10 of them that were exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19. He wants to move the 10 of those to the medical unit for testing. Okay. Well, what they're saying is they thought he was going to move them from there to solitary confinement, which they say is dirty, and they didn't want to go. So they started calling their lawyers when they're being ordered to move out. So the sheriff himself, which I'll give the guy credit.
Yeah.
He didn't send in a bunch of corrections officers. He went in there with them, and he said, let's go. You got to go. You got to get tested.
Which is
just
fair.
Like
Which is right, 'cause you don't want to get everybody sick, right? You don't want to get everybody sick.
Right. Well, they don't like it. They start throwing a temper tantrum. They cause what is estimated to be $25,000 worth of damage to this unit. Meanwhile, 2 of them are on the phone with their lawyers, which is the same lawyer. And they're telling the lawyer that Hodgson himself is attacking them and this and that and all this other bullshit. First of all, there's no evidence, right? So what's the first thing that happens is every politician and every human rights group and everybody comes out of the woodwork and says, oh, we need independent investigation. We need this. We need that. No evidence. You're determining the outcome
before you have the facts. You don't have the facts. Right. Without
and
the
you
facts.
have nothing. You haven't seen.
Right.
You haven't heard the audio. You haven't seen the video footage. You haven't even talked to the sheriff to find out his side of the story yet. All you're going by is a bunch of illegals, which, as far as I'm concerned, do not have any rights. They have human rights. Don't get me wrong. Right. I'm not saying that we should starve them or we should beat them.
Right.
Human rights are human rights.
Right.
But you are not an American citizen.
Right.
You do not have the same rights that I do.
Agreed.
Here. Okay.
Agreed. Because otherwise, what's the point, right? What's the point of being American, right? If you don't have any rights outside of the people that aren't Americans, then what's the point of being American? Right. I mean, seriously.
I can go to Canada. I don't have the same rights as a Canadian does when I'm in Canada, or Mexico, or anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, you can't. You can't vote. You're not going to go there and vote being an illegal. That's not going to happen.
Right. And then let's look at it a different way. Let's say they weren't illegal immigrants or illegal aliens, right? Let's just say that they were just regular prisoners, right? That are in there for assault or robbery or whatever else. Like we won't say murder or anything major, right?
No, right.
We'll just say like
petty crimes.
Petty crimes, right?
Petty crimes.
Okay, had he walked into that unit of the petty crime criminal and said, you need to go get tested, the result would have been the same if they didn't comply. You're in jail. You don't have rights, period.
Right. So what you're saying...
Even as an American citizen, if you're in jail, you inherently gave up your right.
I know what you're saying. Irrelevant. It's irrelevant. Ultimately, it comes down to who. If you're sick, you need to be tested. Like if you, regardless of what you are, you're sharing the same space. And you need if you are exhibiting symptoms of the coronavirus or being sick, you should be tested. Whatever means that may be. That's what you're saying. I totally agree with you. And I will add to your story. I happen to see the images of the space that they completely demolished, bro. They broke sinks. They field gold toilets. Like they kicked through the walls, right? It was, they literally demolished the place. It was like literally unbelievable, bro. Like a bomb went off. Like it was just, they totaled the whole place apart, man. Right?
Absolutely.
And then somehow their rights are being infringed upon. And, You know what, man? Let me say something, and I'll say this out loud.
And you know what they're pushing too, Bobby? What they're pushing is the fact that 3 of them had to be sent to the hospital. What they're not telling you is the reason that the 3 of them were sent to the hospital
is because they were throwing toilets at the guards. That's why.
Say that again?
Because they were picking up toilets and throwing toilets and sinks at the guards.
Well, the thing is, one of them went to the hospital because he was having what they thought might be a heart attack, which ended up not being. It was probably just a panic attack, right? But they medically transported him to the hospital, and they took care of him. Another one was because they got pepperballed. Listen, you don't comply, you get pepperballed. It could have been much worse, right? Because there was canines.
Crowd control. Right? I mean, you have to maintain control. Yes.
Listen, you could have got bit by the dog,
right.
And it would have been, in my eyes, it would have been completely justified. But they weren't. But so one had to go because he was pepperballed, and the symptoms caused some sort of asthmatic attack or something. So they transported him.
Yeah.
And then there was another one. I don't know what their injuries were, but it wasn't anything like because they got, billy clubbed or because they got the shit kicked out of them or something.
Yeah.
It was just because of they already had underlying issues, and then the pepper balls escalated.
And you know what? Right? You think about this, Steve. You think of the whole event taking place, and it's already bad. Isn't it bad enough that you think these individuals might be infected with corona, and now you've got this whole event that takes place, and now how many of those COs had to go into that space and subdue these guys, and how much saliva is flying all over the place, and people, you know what I mean? Now they're physically touching each other, and right, so an event like this becomes, just huge and affecting because everybody's touching everybody. You know what I mean? So something that you think is not such a big deal, it really becomes this big situation because you got to somehow deal with this pandemic. Somehow, these guys are out of control and they don't want to comply. And meanwhile, I'm there because, maybe I had an A and B, or maybe I got a couple of DUIs and I'm in jail. And meanwhile, now I'm going to get corona and die because these illegals are going crazy and flipping out, and now everybody's getting sick. Right.
No, absolutely. And there was no need for it.
Right.
There was no need for it. They were going to go down there. They were going to get tested. They were going to get isolated. If they came back negative, they were going to be put back in the same unit. There was no need for it.
So you agree with Hodgson's actions, the way he dealt with the situation? I'm going to be honest with you guys. He
100%.
Yeah, to me, between us, just the 3 of us, he seems like kind of an asshole. But at the end of the day, the years it seems like he's doing a good job. In the years he's been in there, and obviously it's a voted position. It is a voting position. He's been there for how long, guys? I mean, as long as I can remember, right?
I believe he's been there over 20 years.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken, I do believe. Yeah. And listen, can he come off a bit arrogant? Yes.
But I think you need that though, right? I mean, you're the warden. I would imagine you need some of that, right?
It's right. You're the sheriff. If you were a softie, you'd get nothing done.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Okay, I mean these are the same people, these politicians that are coming out against him with no evidence are the same people that just want us to just open up the gates and let everybody out. Let all these illegals just walk the city and do whatever the hell they want to do. This is like mini California over here.
And they
want you to just open the doors.
And you keep hearing about the sanctuary city. And obviously, if anybody doesn't know, Boston is a sanctuary city. And of course, Marty Walsh keeps bringing that up, that it's a sanctuary city. And of course, that always seems to create this conflict, even if you don't agree with the president, regardless of any of that. I mean, I believe that the states are getting the support from the federal government. So it seems, you know what I mean? From what I'm digesting as far as, information, it seems like the states are getting the help from the government. But, at the end of the day, if Marty Walsh doesn't like Donald Trump and he wants to have a sanctuary city, you're going to have that conflict there, right? And so Joe,
and I personally, I'm of the mind that if you're not going to follow the laws, then I do believe that funding should be cut off. Right. And you know what? In the end, because New Bedford's considering it, right? Mm-hmm. So in the end, it's going to hurt me because any city services that are cut are going to ultimately affect me. But I think the only way, everybody's going to have to suffer, but I think the only way to get these politicians to cut the shit and go, you know what, illegal is illegal, is to cut their funding. Absolutely. It's listen, you don't like the law, change it.
Right.
Change it.
Right.
So if you're a politician and you change this law and I don't want you to change this law, you've lost my vote. So in the next election, that's how the whole democratic process works, right?
Yep.
So in the next election, you're not going to get my vote.
Right.
You may lose your job.
So let me ask
Well,
you, how do you
that's how it
feel?
works.
How do you feel the sanctuary city program benefits anybody? Like honestly, because I mean, what you're saying is essentially, you're saying that hey, listen, we're not gonna if we pull you over and you don't have a driver's license and you're an illegal, we're just gonna let you move along. We're not gonna arrest you. We're not gonna charge you with not having a license or the ability or right to operate a vehicle.
So what's the point of issuing driver's licenses at that point?
Yeah. Well, I guess you're right, man.
Because then if you're driving around and you're an American citizen, you're the one that's going to suffer.
Right? That's what it seems like to me, guys. Joe, that's it. You
it
nailed it,
seems
bro.
Like, it seems
But when
like
it comes
they're
down to
turning
with the
you-
politicians,
Right.
Yeah.
What it seems like is they're attacking the American citizens that have been born here or people that have come here legally. You know, it seems like that's who they're attacking. Like, oh, if I'm driving without my license, I get pulled over, I'm going to jail.
Right.
But if you're an illegal, I'll just
what
pull
it
your
comes
car
down
and move
to
it along.
what it comes down to for the politicians
Yep.
is they know that if they push this through, that all those so now we're going to give them driver's licenses, or we're not going to we're going to allow them to drive without one.
Yep.
What's going to end up happening is they're voting, so they're also going to vote,
Right.
and when they vote, they're going to vote for the person that pushed for them to be able to do all this crap. You know what I'm saying? So
See, what I think is they're
it all
pushing
comes
voter
down to
ID, voter ID. Okay, let's give the illegals licenses. Now they can go vote. All right,
Right.
we played with your game. You know,
Yeah, but honestly, how many going to get it? How many going to get it?
So let's get the illegal.
But who's going to go and get it? Like that's my question, right? If I'm an illegal, right, and I have to go, like already I'm an illegal. Already I don't have a social security number. So and somehow I go to work every day, right, and get a paycheck. How do I, as an illegal, how do I take that next step and go get it? Like, am I even going to go to the trouble of doing that? Why would I do that, right? What's the benefit?
Because if they say that you're protected.
Yeah, well, I mean,
because they're going to give it to you for free.
Yeah, and now I'm telling you where I am, though, right?
No
like if I'm an
asked.
illegal and I'm trying to hide, I'm not going to give you my information, right? If I've got, if I know.
Well, but that's the whole point of the sanctuary city is you don't have to hide.
Oh man. Yeah. So here we go.
That's it, Bobby.
Right?
That's the whole point.
Right,
So
right.
this is what you got going on in San Francisco, right?
Yep.
Like you have an overpopulated city that has like whatever it is, 30%
Shitting all over,
homelessness.
bro. They're shitting in
right?
the streets, man. Shitting in the
Guy,
streets.
come on,
bro.
man. Listen, some guy.
Shitting in the street.
I think we talked about
they're
this.
giving drugs out for free to the homeless people.
Yes.
Come on,
Did you see that?
Bobby, I
Did you
think we
see
talked
that?
about this last time, right? There's somebody actually went out of their way, dude, and they developed an app to where you can actually, dude, you can actually place a place marker, a placeholder, like a spot holder of where there's human feces.
Imagine.
But I'll tell you what, if you walk your dog down the street and your dog shits and you don't pick it up,
then
you're
somebody,
getting a fine.
then somebody's doing this.
Yep.
As soon as you
Yep,
let your
right,
dog shit in the
absolutely.
road, yeah, right. You can't do it. You can't do it.
But if you're out walking your dog and you have to take a shit, feel free.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Hey, listen, man.
That's a great perspective, Steve. It really is, because you know what? A lot of people aren't thinking that way. You know, people are just thinking of, gee, the homeless. You know what? Well, what's the reason behind that? I mean, forget the fact that Nancy Pelosi's in charge over there, and that's probably the wholehearted reason why that's
Jesus
happening.
Christ.
But
God help us all.
outside of that, I don't know, man. Like, again, you think California, you think San Francisco. I mean, a lot of money, right? Hollywood, all of that great grand. But at the end of the day, man, it's literally a shithole. If you look at footage from San Francisco right now, and you look at footage from Ecuador, bro, you can't tell the difference.
No, you can't.
Right.
You can't.
And how
You
does
cannot tell
she
the
keep getting voted into that
How?
district? That's what
Tell me,
amazes
bro.
me.
How is it, man? How is it? Is
How-
it the
how do
blue?
these people
because
not get up?
because San Francisco is a bunch of liberals, okay? And I don't mean to insult liberals because there are liberals. Let me rephrase that. Not liberals. A bunch of leftists.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Rich leftists.
Absent-minded
Sil-
leftists.
Dude,
right.
Everybody from Silicon Valley.
Yes.
That's where they're at.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So a bunch of leftists.
Yep.
Dude, they're brainwashed because it's not in their neighborhood. It's not.
Yeah.
It's in their city, but it's not in their
Exactly.
neighborhood.
Yes.
Right.
It's not.
And
yes.
then you throw in all the illegal votes that she's getting, and you throw in, you know what I'm saying? All these brainwashed Generation Z kids like this.
Yeah. polluted.
don't
They're polluted. They're polluted by it. They're polluted by it. And a lot of it.
Dude, they're all brainwashed.
Yeah, and a lot of it came from the school system. And I hate to do that, and I hate to blame anybody. But you know what?
Exactly what it
when
is.
you start changing the criteria and the content of what you're teaching these children, right? When you change the history books to have verbiage that supports your narrative, guys, listen. And I've said this before, and if you listen to the podcast, all the way back to episode 1, I've said it. If you raise a child and you tell them a spoon is a fork and a fork is a spoon, and they become an adult, you can fight with them as much as you want and tell them a spoon is a spoon and a fork is a fork, and they are going to fight you tooth and nail because that's not what they know to believe is true. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's no different here. And, and I hate to even use this comparison, and I hate to go to this extreme, but what's the difference in what the Taliban is doing, right? Because the Taliban, they're taking these small children, right, when they're young and they're innocent, and they're literally poisoning their minds and saying, hey, the West is this, absolutely. The West is this, and this is the reason why your dad is not alive. This is the reason why you're hungry. This is the reason why you don't have a roof over your head. It's because of the Americans. It's because of the West influence, right? So they grew up their whole lives believing this. Is that what we taught our youth? Is that the generation, Steve, that you're talking about right now? Are these the people that are in our society making these decisions who believe things that aren't true, man? I'll tell you what, man. Well, we could go through this whole podcast, and if I didn't mention it, nobody would know. But we just celebrated the end of World War II, right? That just 75, right? 75 years. That just happened. Does anybody know that? Is anybody aware of that? And the countless lives that were lost in these wars? They don't know.
They don't teach. They don't teach history in school anymore.
They don't, man. They don't. And and I hate
that type of history.
Right. And then if you really look at it, I think when this started to explode, and you guys can disagree with me or agree with me if you want, but I think this really started to come to fruition in the Carolinas when we started taking down statues and we started taking down, like when the Confederate flag became relevant again. You know what I mean? I think that's really where you started to see this narrative kind of expand, right? Because now we're taking down all these statues, now we're taking down all these monuments, and
you're rewriting history.
And although, guys, again, and I know I can speak for the three of us when I say this, when you talk about history and you talk about the Revolutionary War in the North and the South, and obviously slavery was a big part of that, although that was the case, that wasn't the outcome, right? The outcome of it was we won, right? We won. We freed the slaves. We had a new nation. Lincoln, like all of those things that happened from that point forward, we progressively got better. And listen, guys, to say that racism doesn't exist and it's still not out there, I think we'd all be fooling ourselves. But when you really
you'll never get rid of it.
You'll never get rid of it. Absolutely not. But ultimately, I think I'd like to think the majority, including myself and the three of us, we're open-minded. It doesn't, listen, man, as long as you're willing to pick up a shovel and dig a hole with me, let's go. You got my respect. You know what I mean? It's got out about that. But when you start to lose the sight of our history, and I will say this and I'll repeat it, you are destined, and you will doom yourself if you choose to forget the history in which got us to where we are today.
Exactly.
Right? And I think that's
agree,
what's
100%.
happened. So when you don't realize the consequences and the countless lives and souls that were lost to get us to this point where we are today, guys, I don't, and I'll say this out loud, outside of dealing with this coronavirus, the invisible enemy, and, between us thinking that maybe this is China's way of maybe taking over the world, right? Like if you thought that way. Outside of that, do you guys ever feel or fear that we're going to have a war on our own land? Do you ever think, because to me, that's out of my logic of thinking, right? I would never think that we would have war on our own land. Would you agree?
I think it might be closer than most people think.
Right?
I think we are right now, but just not with weapons.
Right, not in the conventional sense of what we think, right? Like, right. Everybody's a soldier today.
You're not out there physically shooting and killing anybody.
I think there's a reason why.
With your liberties.
I think there's a reason why they don't teach history anymore. Because if they taught these kids history, they would teach them that the Republicans freed the slaves.
Right.
Right. They would teach them that.
But they don't think that. They think the Democrats.
It was the Democrats.
Yes.
That were running the Ku Klux Klan.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
This is what history teaches you.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And they would teach them. So like we all know, right? Steve's a big gun guy, right? So they would teach you that every time, right, that somebody has the intention of trying to take over the world, the country, whatever, the first thing they do is take away your rights. And the first right that they take away from you is the right to self-defense.
Right.
Right? Mao did it. Hitler did it. What's happening in Venezuela right now?
Right.
Right?
Venezuela
They
did
took
it.
all their guns, and now what? Now they're getting run over by tanks in the streets. Like what's wrong with this picture? But see, if we taught these kids history,
Yes.
they would know
Right.
this is what happens when they take away your guns.
Right.
But no, we don't teach history, so these kids have no idea.
They have no idea. They don't know the outcome. They don't know the fear. Like, so a child learns very at a young age, if you touch fire, you burn and it hurts. Like they learn that.
Exactly.
But if you don't know that, then you go your whole life and you think that you're safe. And again, it's funny. I was talking to a younger gentleman yesterday, which you could say is a millennial, and really we're having a really in-depth conversation as far as politics. And I asked him, I'm like, how do you feel about Trump? And even before anything, he's like, I wouldn't vote for him. I'm like, okay, well that's fair. Tell me why you wouldn't vote for him. Well, I just don't believe in anything he says. And I said, well, give me something more. Give me something more.
This is all they come up
yeah,
with.
exactly. And I said,
this is because that's what the media tells them.
No
to say.
facts.
Right. So I said,
Right.
so do me a favor. I said, so tell me why you would vote for Joe Biden as opposed to Donald Trump. Well, Biden seems to make more sense. I said, really? I said, because if I had to guess, I would say that Joe Biden has like a slight onset of dementia. Like, would you agree? Like
Yes.
I
Yes.
believe it's.
Something's wrong with him.
Something is wrong with him.
I think it's beyond slight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
I think at this point it's beyond that.
So with that said, right, we're kind of just shifting all over the place here because I want to get this all in here. Who do you guys think he will choose? This is your opportunity. Who do you guys think he will choose as his running mate? Will it be Elizabeth Warren?
No.
Who's it going to
It's
be?
going to be Kamala Harris.
You think so? Come on, no
Yes.
way.
Absolutely.
No
Listen,
way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Listen, dude, where does
Yep.
he need help, right? Where does he
Yeah.
need help? He needs help with the black vote.
Yep.
She's black.
Yep.
Where else does he need help? Especially after
The women.
allegations of inappropriate touching.
Yep.
He needs help with the women.
Yep.
She's also a female, right?
Yep.
She's anti-gun. He loves that. And she's already started with all of the leftist
Yeah, agenda
stuff
Yeah.
in California. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All that, we're not going to prosecute this crime in California or in my jurisdiction anymore.
I did hear
so
that.
she was
Yep.
so she was the attorney who was saying we're not going to prosecute people for shoplifting.
But Steve,
We're not
she
going to
seems
prosecute
so far
people
out of
for these
touch,
petty
bro.
things.
When she was running for president, she seemed like she was just out of touch. Like she just wasn't in touch with
She
the
is.
people, right? I mean,
She is out of touch.
Yeah, she's
wow, man. Let's look at the reality of this, right? So Joe Biden, let's just pretend. We're going to pretend for a minute. Let's go on the magic bus and go for a ride here. So Joe Biden wins the presidency, right? 2020, he wins the presidency. Kamala Harris is the vice president, and then all of a sudden, Joe Biden is deemed unfit to be president, right? Because he has dementia. So now Kamala Harris is our president. She's the one leading.
Pretty much.
I mean, seriously?
That's the way you're gonna think about this election right now.
Right.
It's
Right.
whoever he picks as his VP.
Yep.
That's who you're voting for.
Right.
For president, essentially, because
Right.
he's just gonna bow down after he gets voted in.
Yep.
If he gets voted in.
Yep.
Hope to God he doesn't.
I'll tell you what.
It's
That's
gonna
what
go right to her.
That's what determined when McCain ran. That's what determined it for me. I couldn't vote for McCain. The guy was half dead. I mean, God rest his soul, but I mean, the guy was half dead, right?
Yeah.
And who was
No,
who was his running mate, right? Like she was a psycho. I mean, you couldn't, right? I mean, that's.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I don't understand the Democratic Party. I don't understand. I don't even know if like they got here by accident. You know what I mean? But when you really think about it, and you think about Joe Biden being the candidate, right? Like somehow he got there. And I'll be honest with you guys. I watch a lot of political TV, and more so as of recently, just again with all the current events and with the birth of the podcast. I think it's a very important topic that everybody needs to talk about because it's so relevant right now. And I'm sure that 10 years ago people felt the same way, and it was the end of the world then. But here we are 10 years later, and I'm saying it's the end of the world now. And if we don't do something about this, like you guys think about it, if Joe Biden were the president, I mean the world fundamentally, as I will quote past President Barack Obama, the country will fundamentally change again.
Yep.
Right? Like, we're going to go right back to that same rhetoric where it's all for this and none for this. And I will tell you guys, and I will say this without being embarrassed to say it, when Obama was president, man, I struggled, man. Financially, like with my home.
Everybody
like
did.
everybody did, right? Like, I didn't know.
You ain't kidding.
I didn't know. You know what,
Well,
man?
if you were the working class, you struggled.
Yes.
Put it
yes,
that way.
Yes. And how about not
Yeah.
knowing? How
Well-
about not knowing if you could say Merry Christmas? How about not knowing if you could say Happy
Who the
Thanksgiving?
hell-
Right?
I still
Like,
said it. I didn't care.
yeah, but still, it was.
I didn't care.
But it was always still like a slippery slope, right? Like that was actually happening.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna.
Well, the biggest problem, right? The biggest problem with Biden, if Biden were ever to get elected, is the first thing that would happen is every country in the world would automatically start shitting on the United States again, right?
Yes,
Which
yes.
they've stopped. Okay, we've stopped getting shit on
Yes.
since Trump got elected.
Agreed.
Like him or hate him, okay?
Right.
People do not shit on us anymore, okay?
You're right.
NATO's not shitting on us anymore.
No more
They can go to
NAFTA.
right, no more NAFTA. Now this whole thing with China, like the trade deal with China,
Yep.
we were getting shit on.
Yes.
We're not getting shit on anymore.
Millions
It's not happening.
millions of dollars to Egypt, millions of dollars to Iran, troops still
All these countries. We are
Somalia, right?
shipping, right? We're shipping these people pallets of cash to countries that can't fucking stand us.
Yeah.
They hate us. They hate
Don't
everything
forget
that we
sometimes.
stand for except our dollar. They love our dollar,
Yes.
but they hate everything else about us. And we're just shipping them off money every year.
And I will agree with
How?
you, Steve,
Why?
and tell you that I've honestly, as far as relationships go with our foreign policy and foreign nations, I do agree with you wholeheartedly that I think the world respects us more now than they ever have in the past. And whether or not they're snickering behind Trump's back and going, oh, he's an asshole, that's fine. I agree. I think he's an asshole. But at the end of the day, he's my asshole. And if there's somebody that I want in the ring fight in this arena right now, I don't want a demented old man in the ring with Vladimir Putin. I don't want that. I want Donald Trump, who is probably going to do a Rocky on him. You know what I mean? Like he may not win the fight by points, but at the end, he always somehow comes out on top. And that's what I want, right? That's what makes me feel comfortable and feel safe to know that we might have a future. Like, right? Maybe.
Hey, listen,
you know what?
The guy can say some stupid stuff on Twitter and on TV, and I don't care if you hate him or love him. But at the end of the day, is he getting things done? Is he not bringing more jobs back into our country?
You can't deny it.
Right? Is he
know
not
what?
filling
The only
your
thing-
pocket? He's doing
the only
it, and
thing-
he's making these countries fair up.
Yes.
Where
The only
other
thing
countries
I'm looking
weren't fair
forward
up
to,
before.
I'm going to be honest, the whole thing, I've been looking forward to this for like a year now, right? The only thing I'm looking forward to in 2020 is a presidential debate between Trump and Biden. I am telling you right now,
man.
when that debate
You must watch
happens,
TV.
I am taking the next day off from work because I am going to watch every last second of that debate because that is going to be better
Yes.
than any stand-up comedy
I agree.
that I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I think honestly, and again, and I brought up being in the ring and fighting a heavyweight fight. Like honestly, guys, the two of them going at it, just the two of them. I mean, you guys, you remember what he did to Hillary Clinton, right? Like that was literally comical. And the way he, again, if there's one thing Donald Trump's really, really good at, guys, it's being an asshole. I mean, and you can't deny that. And
Entertainer.
and
He's
it,
an
right, and
entertainer.
he's
He
an
gets you going.
entertainer, right? And he's quick,
That's
and
what
he's
exactly he is.
that's what he is. He puts on a show, and he knows what people. Even you know what? Only Donald Trump could figure out how to still run a political campaign in the middle of a pandemic where you have everyone locked at home. Because the coronavirus task force, a news conference that comes on every single day at 5:00. I mean, you think about it. You got the audience of the whole world watching you, right? Every day for 2-3 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, who's not watching? Who's not watching that? And to your point, Joe, he's an entertainer. He knows how to get to people, how to get his word out.
I think he purposely says things just to rile up the Main Street media.
Yes.
I think he purposely says things
Yes.
just to
Right.
just to get
Right.
just to
All right,
poke
listen,
them.
I think it's,
get 'em
you know
going.
what? He manipulates them, right? So he says something completely asinine and stupid
Yep.
over here on the left-hand side. That's what they run with. That's what they print. Meanwhile, he's over here on the right side doing shit that actually is going to
Right.
help this country move forward.
Right. And a perfect example of that.
And it's all poker to him.
Right. And the perfect example of that was, again, I know you guys will agree, the whole, the disinfectant, right? That whole disinfectant. And now when he
Right.
made the statements, I mean, don't get me wrong. I watched it. I watched it live. So I heard him say the whole light thing. And the people actually confirmed that they do have a ventilator that has these LED lights that are embedded in the ventilator, that when you insert the ventilator into the body, that it emits ultraviolet light that helps kill the virus. And then, of course, there's some conversation that took place, that in the back room right before he came out. And he actually says his exact words were, what if there was a way to inject a disinfectant in to kind of clean it all out and kill it? And people immediately went to, let's go drink Clorox and kill the coronavirus, right? So,
well, what about Cuomo's wife? She comes out and says, "Yeah, we took Clorox, we took Clorox baths, and we took natural drips." But the media doesn't run with that.
No, right?
Right.
Well, dude, that whole Cuomo and his whole family's whacked.
They
right?
are a little. Right?
Now you got you got Cuomo, right? He's got a bunch of nurses that come into New York City to help out, right?
Yep.
Oh yeah, beautiful. Yeah, we love you. Now he wants to tax them. Now pay your taxes.
Right?
Are you shitting me?
Imagine that. Like, so.
Are you shitting me?
Thanks, but no
Come
thanks.
on.
Right?
Well, what about when this whole thing came out and he said, "Please, everybody, stay home. Think of your mom, like I'm thinking of my mom."
Yep.
And yet now, what is he doing? He's taking all these covering COVID victims.
Yep.
And sending them into nursing homes.
Yeah. Right.
Does that make any sense?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't make any sense.
And the elderly is the highest risk, and you're going to send these people that have had it.
Yep.
Into a nursing home.
Right. So they're separated, and now you're gonna bring them all together again and get them all sick again. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And the same way he said it, like, dear Mr. President, how do I tell? I have 4,000 ventilators. How do I tell 29,000 people that they're gonna die? I mean, we're talking. That's a real extreme statement. You know what I mean? Especially when to you and I, guy, to the three of us here, that probably isn't as impactful. But if one of us had a family member that was in the hospital that needed a ventilator, and you hear the governor make a statement like that, man, that cuts deep. That's a deep, right? I mean, because what is he actually saying? So if my loved one needs to go on a ventilator, are you saying they're going to die? You're making that statement out loud. I think Cuomo,
which is completely
not true. Yeah,
not only to not, like, you don't make that statement because it's just a stupid thing to say.
Right.
But then the fact is, it's not even true.
It's not even true.
Like, we have so many ventilators now that we're literally sending them to other countries, so that they can use them.
From what I'm seeing all over the place, not just certain links or anything like that, but all these doctors and nurses are saying,
don't do it.
Treating these people with ventilators is the wrong way to treat them.
I heard the same thing, Joe. Yes,
we're murdering them, which makes sense. I mean, you're pumping oxygen into a lung that's filling up with water. Essentially,
you're drowning. They suffocate. They're literally drowning in their own fluids. They're suffocating. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
You got to attack what's causing their lungs.
But if you guys remember, we talked about it at the beginning of the podcast, you got $30,000 to put somebody on a ventilator, didn't you?
Right.
Yeah.
So 38,000, right? 39,000, somewhere around there.
That's the problem. That's the problem. Why are we paying?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
You're paying them more to murder somebody.
Yes.
Why are we paying hospitals anything for any patient that has COVID? Are they not collect? I mean, all right, listen. I believe that they should collect for their payment for services.
Yes.
So whether it be Medicare or whether it be private insurance, however they're getting paid, right? I believe that all the costs should be covered. But why are we paying hospitals extra money?
We shouldn't.
For patients with that. We should, of course we shouldn't. And
this is no offense to the medical community, but you're doing your job. Like, this is what you got. This is your job. This is what you were hired to do. You were hired to treat sick people. That's
absolutely
right. I mean,
and you're getting paid to do it.
Yes.
It's not like you're volunteering to do it. Listen, don't get me wrong. I love nurses. I love doctors.
Yeah, me too, man. Not the wrong idea.
Absolutely. But you're making your check this week just like you did last week to do your job. Why is because it's not the nurses that are getting the extra money, right? Or the doctors. It's the hospitals. It's those big hospital foundations that are making all this extra money.
What's the corporate conglomerates? These hospitals are owned by medical conscious individuals. These hospitals are owned by businessmen and women. That's who owns these hospitals.
They're owned by Bill Gates.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's the same shit over and over. It's the same people that keep getting paid for the same thing.
Right.
So Bill Gates is going to get paid 3 times over for the same. So he's going to get paid when there's a vaccine and we sell that vaccine. He's going to make his profit. And then he owns part of some hospitals. So he's going to make that profit. Like, it's the same person making profits off of people dying. And nobody seems to have an issue with this. I don't understand it.
And speaking of that, so you mentioned
Bill
Gates.
In fear.
Yeah, and you mentioned the vaccine. So have you guys heard about this ID 2020? Have you? If you haven't, I'll mention mention to you guys, and I'll mention it to the audience as well. If you have a chance, go on Google and type in ID 2020. And it really is spooky information, and it really is related to the vaccine at some point when they release a vaccine for the coronavirus. Obviously, people will be running in droves to the CVS's and to their doctors to get this vaccination. But what they're actually saying that potentially, and again, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist all labeled as one, but they're saying that there could be a tracking device in the vaccine itself that once it's injected into your body, now they can track you wherever you go and whatever you do. Guys, I would probably never believe something like that, but if you also told me that this coronavirus was going to be what it is today, I probably wouldn't have believed that either, but here we are. How do you guys...
You don't think that's already happened, Bob?
See, so that's where I was going with this. Do you feel that this is something that has already taken place? Do you think that, H1N1, we've all got vaccinated, we've at one time or another for the flu. Do you think we've already been implanted with something like that? Do you think that's possible?
We haven't been implanted, but think about it. You got your phone.
Yep.
You got your car. Almost everybody has an Alexa
Yes.
or a Google inside their house.
Yes.
Now you talk about something.
Yes.
Do you people out there not realize if you're talking about, hey, listen, I went to Home Depot and I found this,
Yeah, you're right. And then it comes up on your
then
phone,
you go
right?
up on your phone,
Yeah.
and there it is.
Yeah. More often than not.
Think that they're tracking
Yes,
you?
it's happening more often. I used to not notice it, Joe, but now I notice it. It happens all the time. I'll have a conversation with my wife.
Just look at Facebook. My wife said it to me the other day, right? We had that campfire in the back, right? My wife took a couple pictures. She put them up on Facebook, right? And she didn't tag anybody in it, but somehow I was tagged in it. My oldest daughter was tagged in it. She's like, what the hell is this?
How did that?
Because I didn't tag you in
this. It took it upon itself, right? The algorithm took it upon itself and did that, right?
Yeah, it's like facial recognition.
Wow.
It's AI.
This is deep shit, man. This is for real. I mean, and if you believe this, and if you think that this is possible, you're living in a world where you kind of question things, right? Like, what the hell's going on? Like, how did we end up here so quickly, right? Within 2 months. And of course, you would already agree that the world changed, but then you start to hear all this other information at the other end about the doctor, about, Bill Gates, about all of these things, and you say to yourself, Jesus Christ, like, how did we get here? Like, how is this even possible? And is it the government, or is it something outside of the government, guys? Is this the government? Is this the federal government, the state government? Or are we talking about an entity that is above, like they say, the cult? Is this that power above, right? Above the government that's making these moves? Or
the deep state?
Yeah. Right?
There you go. For all you conspiracy theorists.
Seriously, right? Like, right?
If you really believe it, supposedly there's a deep state, and Hillary and all these other people are behind it.
So how does my point is, how do we get here, right? Like, all of a sudden we weren't looking for 2 seconds, and if you guys remember, and I'm just going to throw this out there, I'm just going to dangle it. If you guys remember, I hope you remember, when the coronavirus first was, when we were accusing China of the virus coming from China, do you guys remember the first thing China stated about the coronavirus and their rebuttal to us was?
Yeah, it was our military.
Yes! Imagine that. And
you watch Plandemic,
right?
And supposedly,
right,
it could have came from.
They said that people that have been inoculated for H1N1 are 36% more likely to contract the COVID virus. Do you think it's absolutely possible that a troop was infected with this coronavirus, and right? Is that possible? I mean, obviously we're blaming China, and there's no way the three of us could ever find the truth. Like, there's no way. I mean, we can only speculate. But do you think, like I said, when they first said it for me, I was actually insulted by it. I'm saying to myself, how dare they accuse us and our troops of transmitting this disease? But after watching all this information, is it a possibility?
Well, supposedly,
is there any proof of that?
If you watch that Plandemic, right? So doesn't Fauci and Bill Gates own a research facility in North Carolina, and somewhere else, and then in Wuhan?
Yes.
Now, do you remember when this whole thing first started? Did they not arrest somebody at the airport?
Yes, for carrying vials of the coronavirus in their sock. Yep, in their sock.
North Carolina's facility.
I do remember that.
So her whole story, and just like anything else, there's half truths, and then there's the full truth.
Right.
Like, how much of it do you believe? why whenever somebody asks me about it, I say, listen, do your own research.
Yeah, because we can talk about it.
Because not all of it is going to be true.
Right.
She's trying to sell a book, for crying out loud.
Right, and this pandemic is going to be a movie. What we've watched, from what I understand, what we've watched is a 27-minute segment of what's going to be a full-length documentary.
Oh yeah, you're going to have a bunch of movies done about this.
Yeah,
you know that.
But you know what I found. And again, I always find these things interesting, guys, because I don't know a whole lot about like viruses and these biologists and the way that they. But when she makes the statements, like she actually said the idea that someone would be infected from a bat is absolutely ludicrous. She said the evolution of a virus to jump from an animal to a human could take up to 800 years. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, right? So that's, to me, like, that's evolutionary, right? So this virus, that if left on its own, it would take over 800 years for it to adapt to the human.
Yeah.
But in this case, her point in saying is that this is man-made because it was manipulated in a laboratory to react and act in this manner. So it wasn't.
I believe all that. Yeah.
Yeah, me too, man.
I believe somebody somewhere made this.
Yep.
And whether they did this on purpose, affecting everybody, that's your own belief. I would hope not. I would hope that somebody did not try to affect everybody with this virus. But
it's possible, man.
Right? If they did come from another country that hates America and hates everybody else around them, who am I to say? Or who is anybody else to say?
And who had the most? And who had the most to gain in all this? When you stop and really think about it, guys, who had the most to gain by a pandemic in the United States? China, right? Because all of the PPE, all those masks that we're wearing, all the equipment, and not you guys because you're not getting any, but for the rest of us, all of the PPE that we're getting is coming from, guys, listen, where I work, we've got over 200 employees, and all of my masks that I have are coming directly from China, getting dropped at my door from China. So the amounts of money that are being sent over there right now for this PPE, I mean, it's really, you're creating your own market. I mean, seriously, right?
It's convenient, isn't it?
It really, I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
Right?
Isn't that wicked convenient?
It's a little too convenient, man. And it's scary.
Yeah, exactly.
And it is very, very scary. And I'll tell you what, even if, let's just say, like we're sitting here talking, guys, even if that wasn't true, what if it is? And if it is, how easy was that?
Yeah, well,
it took one.
It does come out true.
Right.
China's got to worry about the rest of the world because the rest of the world is going to look down on them and say, hey.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, Joe, what are we going to do? What is the United States going to do to China? Like, I mean, I'm not being facetious.
Well, it's not just the United States,
like in general. So let's say the world.
world.
Let's just say the world. Let's say the world. What is the world?
I think we still have a couple atom bombs laying around somewhere.
Do you think that's the
I'm
way?
I'm not saying bomb.
Listen, Japan cut this shit, didn't they?
What you do?
I'm just saying.
You heard them? Hey, Steve, just like you said, money's power, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If the rest of the world says, hey, you know what? We're cutting off funding. We are no longer trading with you. We are no longer doing anything with you.
But you know what the problem with that, Joe, is?
Now you end up with another North Korea.
Well, the problem with, you can't see, China has been very, very smart about how they do things. You can't just shut China off. Dude, 75% of our medication comes from China.
Yeah, they say it.
That's why you need to stop making everything American made.
But that's the thing, right? So if tomorrow, Joe, absolutely. But here's the problem. If it comes out tomorrow that China did this, now what? What are you going to do? You can't do shit. What are you going to do? Because they own us. They literally own us because they manufacture at least half of everything that we produce, that we
So, Steve,
consume.
To your point, even if the federal government knew with certainty that this came from China, it would be in its best interest to not admit that right now. Would you agree? Because,
absolutely.
Because then we're forced to do something, right?
Just stop building everything in your own country.
That's what I think you do.
You got enough supplies to do your own thing.
That's what I think you do.
Boom, see you later.
That's the only way. That's the only way you can combat China, because there are so many countries that are China dependent. You talk about Russia, you talk about the Koreas, like Iran, like all of these countries that are dependent upon China. That's not going to change. The United States, I believe, has the ability to say, you know what? We're not going to have our penicillin come from China anymore. We're going to make our penicillin in the United States. But can you say that for some of these smaller countries that don't have that ability? They're still going to go to China, right? They're still going to go over there, right? That's a natural fact. Going back to the original question here is, China is so big. What do you do? Like, how do you stop? How do you hurt China? Is it by policy? What is it? Is it sanctions? I don't know, man, because you're talking about a country with billions of people. How do you, a country that can self-sustain itself, right? Because you could say China could self-sustain itself. Does China need the world? Or can China be self-sustaining on its own, right? If we said, we're done with you, China, we're not going to do anything with you anymore, how does that hurt China? Is it do people go hungry and people die?
I don't think it hurts China. And I'm going to tell you why I don't think it hurts China at all. It's because China, unlike the United States, doesn't give a shit.
Right.
China would have no problem with letting 30% of their country starve to death.
Agreed.
They don't give a shit.
Right.
They listen. They were killing unborn children or
Yes.
So you could have so many kids, and then after that,
Yes.
they kill them. They don't give a shit. So China wouldn't care. It wouldn't be the bureaucrats of China, the upper, echelon of the Chinese people that would be dying. It would be all the people in these wet markets that are eating bats now. They're the ones that would starve and die.
Yes.
And China wouldn't give a shit. They wouldn't care.
So why, at this point, I'll ask you this, why would China even have a statement or a narrative to say, no, this didn't come from Wuhan? Why would you even say that? Would it not be, listen, we're not going to talk about it. We're gonna do an investigation, and we're not going to release information. But they were releasing information. Again, they first they said it was American troops that were over there, and that was the cause of it. And then they said it was a bat, and that somebody ate bat soup and made and got sick. And then, of course, we hear something different from our Justice Department telling us, hey, listen, it wasn't. It was released from a lab in Wuhan that is literally funded by the U.S. Funded by the United States, guys. The United States is funding money to the lab in which this virus was released. If this is all true, if this is the way it all ends up, that's what happened. That's the way this all turned out. And honestly, I hear you guys, but what are we going to do? What is the United States going to do to China? And that, again, you asked that question. I don't know, guys. I really don't know. And how do you move from this point moving forward? Like, what do you do with that relationship? Because you can't believe them, you can't trust them anymore. Am I right?
Right.
I mean,
you also got to look at the World Health Organization too.
Right, because they lied. They weren't truthful and forthcoming with the information that they had. Right?
Now, did they lie, or is that what was being told to them also from China at the same point? Right?
Yeah, but you know what though? You're going to allow self-policing? Is that even possible? Are you allowing yourself to self-police?
Did somebody not do their job? Maybe. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? We don't know for the fact. All we know is that, we heard about this virus back in October, and supposedly we reached out and said, hey, how is this thing going? Oh, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. China's saying the same thing. World Health Organization saying the same thing. And it's like somebody dropped the ball somewhere.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely, totally, and utterly dropped the ball. I totally, absolutely agree with that. Yes.
Was it the World Health Organization protecting China? Was it the World Health, somebody that was investigating this not doing their proper job? You know what I'm saying?
Or was it intentional, right? So do you think like maybe WHO, right, with the World Health Organization, do you think that maybe they didn't realize the severity of this, or do you think they knew, or do you think they knew that it was going to be this and kind of just said, we're going to take a back seat on this?
I like to be optimistic and just say I would hope that they didn't know and just hope that it went away. You know what I'm saying? I would hope they wouldn't do that.
You would hope. You would hope that they would. And between the three of us, I think Steve is trying. I don't know if he can hear us now, but I think
we lost Steve.
Yeah, I think he's trying to get back in, and I think we might have lost the connection. But we'll continue to move on here, and hopefully he'll jump back in here soon. Just shifting gears a little bit, bro. And I really think it's important to talk about this because, again, we're talking a lot of politics here. We're talking about government. We're talking about a lot of the backdoor stuff that's going on. And if you remember the original statements that were made when we found out about Corona, and going back to like December, right? January, December into February, all of those months. So when that was going on, if you remember, Joe, it was the impeachment, right? It was the impeachment. Right. They were trying to impeach the president. They were trying to figure out, but it all started with the General Flynn, right? General Flynn, and they were talking about collusion and the fact that Flynn had knew and willfully, knowingly made false statements to the FBI and Adam Schiff about the Russian collusion. In this case, so they turn around and they said that he lied. And when you look at all the documentation now, obviously the DOJ has done the investigation and found out that they really they kind of they backdoored the guy, right? They made him say things that weren't true, and the guy ends up getting convicted and stripped of. I mean, we're talking a 5-star general here, guys, and he's stripped of everything. And just the idea that, if you're an American and you've served your country for that many years, and here you go, you got Democrats that come in and completely just create a narrative that doesn't exist, and then it leads into the corona. Let me just say this. In the last 2 days, the Department of Justice has decided they're going to release those charges. They're not going to convict. He's not going to get convicted of those charges. How do you feel about that? And did you think was the right thing to do?
A lot of this was all fabricated from the get-go.
Yes.
So yeah. And I mean, when he comes back, and if Trump does get reelected, I honestly so heartily believe that he's going to put Flynn as the head of FBI.
I hope, right? Right? How great would that be? Would you talk about, full circle, right? I mean, really, just and imagine that the actual organization that lied and drove you out is the organization that you now are in charge and run. I think that would be.
And investigate under their own.
Right.
You're the head of the investigation of the FBI, and you're investigating the FBI.
How scary is that to think? Because you know what? I grew up always believing that the CIA and the FBI was legit and they were always in for the good fight. But then when you read some of those documents and the way that they were manipulating the verbiage to get this man who served our country for so many years, I feel betrayed.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They gave him a very unfair rap. Like, it's kind of like Joe said. This was in the works before Trump even got elected. Like, they were already talking. Like, they're so stupid on the left at times that they literally announce the stupid shit that they're going to do before they do it. And then they think that the American people are just so stupid that they'll never figure it out.
They're already investigating Trump for an impeachment because of the whole coronavirus.
Oh,
right,
man.
Right. They're investigating him for an impeachment over the coronavirus that 2 months ago they said he overreacted to by implementing a travel ban. Right.
And
now they're talking about he's not handling correctly. He didn't act fast enough.
That was
so 2 months ago. He acted too fast.
Yeah, Pelosi.
Now
was
he's
in
not
China.
acting fast enough.
Pelosi was in Chinatown telling everybody, "Come on down.
Right.
Come to
Come
China.
on down.
Come
Join
on
us.
down. Join us. It's safe. We're going to eat some."
The virus isn't that bad.
Right. It's not that bad. It's all good. Right. And then meanwhile, all these people are getting sick. I mean, so how do you follow? And guys, we haven't talked about it since, and I'll just bring it up because it just came to my mind. How did you guys feel when she tore up that speech? Like, because me personally, guys, I was absolutely infuriated by it. And regardless of how you feel, I don't care who the president was sitting at that podium. The fact that it was Trump is irrelevant. The idea that the Speaker of the House would actually do something like that, I was absolutely, me personally, I was embarrassed to see that.
Well,
that was
her explanation of it was because it was all false statements that he gave.
Right.
You got Army, you got a 102-year-old Army.
Right.
He was. That's all fabricated. You're telling me this is all lies.
Right.
What about the child that just got accepted for
to
school?
The scholarships. Rush Limbaugh and his, granted, regardless
that's
of how
all fabricated.
Yeah, regardless how you
that
feel.
That doesn't matter. Rip it up.
Yeah.
Right. That's the problem. That was the biggest incident of disrespect that has happened in a long time.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't about. You're right. It wasn't about Trump. It wasn't even about his speech.
Right.
It was about what was written in that speech.
Yes.
About, like Joe said, all of those people that have had these great accomplishments, right? And then you just tear it up like it never happened.
Like it never mattered.
Like
it was all
it
lie. Like it was all lie. It never happened. Right. Like that soldier that risked his life. Right. Like that never happened. That right.
Absolutely.
Never happened. That World War II veteran, that never happened. You know what I mean? Like, to me, the biggest sign of disrespect at any shape or form is when you stop for 1 second and think that our armed services, that our troops, the people fighting the good fight every day, that's not true, that's not happening. Right now, this very moment, all over the world, those people are out there making sure that we have our freedoms and that our country is safe and that you can go outside and that you can get in your car and drive down the road. And if you want to go get a fucking haircut, you can go get a fucking haircut if you want. Yeah. So when things like that happen, and I apologize, I get so upset, and it absolutely infuriates me that that's the logic that is controlling and steering this Democratic Party. That Nancy Pelosi, in all her stupid and ignorance, That's the voice, the shifts. That's the voice. Those are the voices that people are hearing. How can you follow that? How do you follow that narrative? I don't care. Millennial, I don't care who you are. Millennial, Generation X, whatever you are, boomer. How do you follow that narrative with that drunken, stupid idiot? With whatever she said. How? I can't. I'm telling you, man, I can't figure it out. And somehow,
you know what I can't figure out, and you just brought this up, but I can't figure it out. I can't figure out how nobody has stepped in and said, we can't allow you to sit at that seat today.
Right. Seriously, right?
And she would be like, well, why? Because you just blew a .308.
Right, because you're drunk.
That's why. Because you're freaking drunk. Like, how is it allowed? How is she allowed to sit as the Speaker of the House when she's pissed drunk?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, you remember when they went through the whole voting process, right? They didn't originally want her.
Right.
They had no
right,
choice.
right,
Pretty much
right.
like how their presidency is running right now.
Yes.
They
yes,
have no choice.
yes.
It's Joe Biden and nobody.
Because you had Ryan
Why do
in
you think
there,
they're
right?
trying to
You had Ryan.
trying to
He didn't
push
want
it,
it
like-
anymore. And somehow, like, and I keep saying it, it wasn't like she was voted in by the people. It's somehow she kind of got granted that position and fell right into it. And somehow the Democrats thought that was a good idea. Guys, again, I'm not.
You know what the problem is? No, they didn't. See, that's the other thing that the media doesn't report, or they did for a little while, but then they kind of shut up about it. Because even the Democrats themselves, they did not want her.
Right.
No.
She has dirt on somebody somewhere. I don't know. Naked pictures of somebody with a horse or something. I don't know. But she has enough stuff on these people. I mean, granted, she's been there long enough, right? Like she's been there, what, like 30 years in the House or something? It's crazy. It's crazy. These people have been there for so long. Even the Democratic Party did not want her there as the Speaker of the House.
She's a career politician in that sense. She'll be there forever, and even now she can retire.
Somehow she pulled it off.
Yeah, she did. Yep. And it's an unfortunate situation where the only way that she's going to be out is when she dies. That's it. As long as she's alive, she's gonna. And I hate to even use this example, but I'll blame my mom, and I'll blame our parents. I'll blame our parents, because I know that my mom, she would vote blue and vote D because she was told that when she became a citizen. Somebody at the immigration office, when she got her citizenship, told her, "Hey, listen, you're a Democrat. You're going to be a Democrat. You're always going to be a Democrat." And my mom, if you ask her, she will always vote for the Kennedy. Like that. There's no. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's in there.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Because just here in New Bedford, I mean, let's not even go on a federal level. Let's go on a state level. The Portuguese people are wonderful people, but they're not always the brightest. Okay. So like let's just look at New Bedford for a minute, right?
Yep.
So you have Tony Cabral down here, right? Who's a state rep. Portuguese people love him. Why? Because his last name is Cabral. The Portuguese people, for a long time, they still are, but not as much, I guess. They were here because of the fishing port, right? The number one fishing port in the U.S.
Yep.
And they were all fishermen. I can honestly tell you that there is not one person in office that has done more to kill the fishing industry than Tony Cabral.
There you go.
But these people
love him
because he has a Portuguese last name. Continue to vote for him.
Right.
He is the biggest fraud ever known to man in this state. And that's saying a lot, because this is the state of the Kennedys and the Barney Franks and the Elizabeth Warrens. But Tony Cabral has to be one of the biggest frauds I have ever met in my life.
Because, really, and you think about New Bedford, and if you had to pick an industry for New Bedford, you would say it's the fishery, right? Because that's
Absolutely.
the
at
core.
least it used to be.
Yeah, it used to be, right? And then you think about Fall River, and it was the textile, and that was their thing. So New Bedford, you had the fisheries. Fall River, you had the textiles, and it's very similar to what happened to both. You had all these regulations that are being put in place where they could no longer function. And you had companies like, if you guys remember, Quaker Fabric Corporation in Fall River, they employed over 5,000 people. All those people went home for a 2-week vacation in July, and when they came back, there was a sign on the door that told them they didn't have a job anymore. And that happened just like that. And why did it happen? It happened because there was so many regulations that the company could no longer function at a profit level. There was just, they couldn't do it. And so if you went to another country and you were manufacturing the same materials, it was going to cost you, 80% less cost? What are you going to do? What makes sense, right? You're going to leave.
Right.
right? And then in this case, you're talking about the fisheries in New Bedford and Cabral, and there's so many these regulations. I mean, and I get it. You got to protect. I get it. Protect the ocean. Protect. I get it. I get all that. I understand that. But there's got to be an equal balance here, right, guys? There's got to be a 50-50 where these people can still somewhat work and do what they're good at. Because if I own a scallop boat, right? If I own a scallop boat, I got to pay a loan, right? I mean, obviously, I would imagine, a couple $1 million for a scallop boat. I got to pay for my crew, right? I got my crew that's going to be on the boat. I have to pay the insurance. I have to pay liability. At the end of the day, how can I afford to get in my boat and drive my boat into the Georgia banks and go scalloping if I can't afford to do so, where it's actually costing me money? And then the worst part of all this, guys, and I know I'm going on a tear here, these people that are working on these boats, these merchant marines, the taxes. Like, they don't take taxes out of their pay. So every single one of them, and I know you guys agree, if you know anybody who's in this industry, they owe like thousands and thousands of dollars to the government because they're handed paychecks that aren't deducted. Like, why would you do that, right? Why would you do that?
Well, and the problem is, if you talk to any fisherman now, 20 years ago, these guys would go out on a scallop trip. They'd come back with $50,000 in their pocket.
Yes.
One trip.
Yes.
These same guys are going out there now for a trip, and they're coming back with 5 or 6. I mean, it's not. They didn't get a little bit of a cut.
No.
They are getting bent over.
Yes. And you guys remember, it was a couple of years ago, the union, right? The fisheries union. Do you remember when that all went down and people got nothing? Like when the fisheries shut down there and the union said they were going to take care of people? They didn't get anything. Yeah. People lost everything. They lost their whole livelihoods because the union never helped them and never paid. It was just amazing that could happen, and to such a predominant source of food and supplies that comes out of New Bedford, and to have people involved in that don't understand the industry and are applying all these regulations and all these laws that literally suffocate and choke out a fishery city like New Bedford. So the glory of which it was at one point, right, is no longer.
It was one of the richest cities in all of the United States at one point.
Like all even that, like the processing plants, like it all dwindles down, right? Because it starts at the boat, and then from there it goes to the processing plant, and there's people working there, and they're processing it, and then they ship it out to restaurants and packaging plants, and they do all that. So all of those people are all affected, and I hate to let the cat out of the bag, but 90% of the people that are working in those plants, they're all illegals. Do you know why they're illegals?
That's the major problem.
The reason they're illegal is because the people that own them cannot afford to pay a fair wage to an employee who is paying taxes. That's why. Yeah. That's why that happens, right? So you're almost feeding a system that eventually just implodes. It implodes because now you got ICE coming down and taking your workforce, and now you show up to your processing plant and you have no employees to do the work.
Right, ICE. How dare you bring that up?
I figured, I figured. Here we go.
How dare you? Those people, ICE, immigration, coming in here and enforcing our nation's laws. What is wrong with you, Bobby? We should abolish ICE. We should just let everybody flow into this country and just do whatever the hell they want.
Man, you know what? I say we ask every American who's been wronged, raped, murdered, or hurt by these illegals, ask them that question. Ask them that question and see how they're going to answer it, because the people that are answering those questions have no personal experience whatsoever to feel what it's like to have someone who doesn't even belong here take away or hurt the thing you love most in the world.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
You're absolutely right.
That's what it comes down to. It's all about who are you asking that question, because the people that are fighting that fight have no personal experience whatsoever. They don't. And again, and I even go back to the beginning of the podcast, guys, where we were talking about, the 70, let's just say 80,000 souls that they're claiming died to the coronavirus. Let's just say that it's not 80,000. Just for our conversation, let's just say 50,000. Let's just say 50,000 people legitimately died from the coronavirus. Guys, that's not good, man. That's 50,000 families. That's 50,000 moms, dads, sisters, brothers. And
it's 50,000 too many.
Right, and you can't look past that. We have to remember that has actually taken place, and if there's something we can do about it, let's do it. But if you're going to turn around and spin the narrative and you're going to try to have an agenda that's going to work in your favor, in your financial benefit, man, that's where it all changes. And I think that's the space that we're in right now. I think there's a lot of money to be made here, and I think there's a lot of questions that are unanswered. And how do you rebuttal that? Not only
a lot of money, but because of this all going on, there's a lot of rewriting you can do in part of these bills. You know,
Because now
stimulus
you know.
bill.
Now you know.
What else is in that stimulus bill that you don't know? There's new laws that they're putting into place.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Bailouts for these huge freaking corporations that are doing nothing that has to and nothing to do with COVID-19.
Right.
But we're bailing them out because Pelosi or somebody else owes them a favor.
Right.
And
look at mail.
that's the problem.
Voting by mail. You go and vote for that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's it for the rest of your life. You put that in your bill.
Yes.
That's it.
That's
It's in bill, and you no longer go into polls.
Yeah, these are the same people. We can't risk going out in public to vote. These are the same people that are in lines at
Go to the
Walmart.
grocers.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They're all in
Right.
Walmart buying freaking stupid shit.
Yeah. So
But they can't get out of bed to go vote. Like, come on, are you kidding me?
You can't go to church. You can't go practice your religion. But you can go to Walmart and go buy whatever you want. You want to go buy a basketball? You can go buy a basketball. It doesn't. They're not saying you can't buy. Like
Right.
there's no restrictions. You can go in there and get whatever you want. But if I want to go to my parish and I want to, again, there's got to be choice. There's got to be free choice. I mean, and when you take that away from people fundamentally, guys, I don't want to get into the Constitution. But ultimately, at the end of the day,
you're looking at it. People are getting fed up. Business owners are getting fed up. Look at the woman with the hair salon getting fed up. Listen, I got people I need to feed.
Yes.
I got workers that need to feed their families.
Yes.
We need to get back to work.
Yes.
What we're learning now is the data.
Right.
Everything that's coming out on this thing is suggesting, people with underlying health issues and the elderly are all getting affected.
Right.
And to your point earlier, we should. I agree. All right, listen, you can't isolate just the elderly. You can't sit there and say, you got to wear masks, you got to stay home, you got to wear gloves. Because what we're doing now is we all could be, like you said, asymptomatic. I don't know if I got it, but if I go touch that grocery cart and now
Mrs. Brown
Betty
comes over and she grabs it.
And she touches that, now she's got it.
Well, my whole take on that is
you can't isolate them all.
See, my whole take on that is exactly what I said in the beginning. So this is supposed to be a free country. So if I feel that I can walk into Walmart that I do not want to wear a mask, then that should be my choice. On the other hand, if you feel that you may be at risk, you have that choice to stay home, or you have the choice to go do what you have to do and wear the gloves and wear the mask and stay away from people. But that's on you. That's not on me.
But do you think it's fair?
I am
Steve,
responsible for my safety.
Yes, but do you think
you're
it's
responsible for yours?
Do you think it's fair to say we should all wear a mask? Do you think that's fair? Do you
No.
think that's a fair compromise? Me personally,
No.
I think it is. I don't mind wearing a mask, and if you tell me that by me wearing a mask that I could probably prevent the contraction of the virus, I don't mind.
Well, but see, Bobby, that's the problem. By you wearing a mask, the only thing you're preventing is you getting sick.
But in turn, like,
not really, because
not really, because even the studies are saying that that's not true.
Because if you go out, right, and you sneeze or you cough, now your water, you're spitting out the germs that's going on to potentially a product or a car or in your hands, and now you're touching something else.
Right.
You're spreading it. So by him wearing a mask himself,
that's what I'm thinking.
What the mask is doing, it's not. You can even listen to Fauci in the beginning of this whole thing.
Yeah.
A mask is not going to prevent you from getting the virus.
Yeah.
The mask is going to prevent you from spreading it.
Yeah, or minimize the possibility.
Okay, so
for me,
let me ask. Let me ask you a
mask
question then.
I can't wear a mask too long. I have asthma. So I can't wear it more than 15, 20 minutes. I start getting harder breathing. I can't breathe.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. I'll ask you both this question then. The government tells you that you have to wear a mask, okay? And you feel it's a good idea, which, hey, listen, you're entitled to your opinion, and that's great. But what's next? Like, to what end? What's next?
Next.
Next week now? So next week they tell you have to wear brown socks because it's going to prevent.
I know.
Do you know what I'm saying? So
and then
the week after that, dude, it's already bad enough that we're locked in our homes.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
We're locked in our homes. So our kids are locked in the homes. This is the same government that tells us that our kids spend too much time in front of tablets, in front of the TV, playing video games, that they need fresh air.
Locking them in.
So, okay, right. So now what? So now we've locked all these children. For 2 months now, we've locked our children. They can't go anywhere.
My point is I don't mind helping stopping the virus, the spread of it.
I agree.
And once they do come out with, say, a vaccine or whatever,
Yep.
And this virus starts to pretty much eventually go away, and they still want us to wear masks, they're going to get a big middle finger.
Right. So
I'm not going to do it anymore.
To your
because
point,
listen,
Joe.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I wear the mask. I'm wearing the
I
mask
get
because
what
I
you're
want
saying.
to. I'm choosing to. I'm saying I'm choosing to wear the mask. I
Right
know
now,
that,
I'm choosing to.
Yes,
right.
I know that they're saying
Right.
it's a mandatory thing, but ultimately, in my heart, I'm choosing to wear it because I'm thinking.
Okay.
My
So you know
logic
what,
and
Bobby?
what I know
So-
about germs, that's what I'm applying. I'm applying what I know about germs and how germs are spread. That's what I'm.
All right,
applying.
Bobby. So then this is not, but this is not the right way to approach it.
Right.
If that's what you want people to do,
Right, I agree.
then you should suggest
Yes.
that people wear masks
That's
when
fair.
out in public.
That's fair.
I
That's
agree.
fair.
Okay.
And that's the way I look at it too.
Yep,
To
that's
believe
fair.
me,
You
Because-
should not be Governor Baker saying that as of Wednesday. So on Monday, he announces that as of Wednesday, everybody has to wear a mask when they are out in public and they cannot social distance. 2 months ago, that might have been a great idea.
Right.
exactly.
2 months later,
Yeah,
you're going to tell me that now that the curve is coming down,
Yeah.
that people should be wearing masks.
Right.
And I completely
You
understand.
know what?
I
There's a
completely
perfect
agree with
meme
you
out there. Wearing a mask 2 months after a lockdown is like putting on a condom after
yeah.
she's pregnant.
Yeah.
Okay? That is, listen,
Exactly.
there is no more perfect meme
Yep.
to describe the situation
Yep.
that this state is in right now.
Yeah.
Let me tell you. Now, are you guys, any of you, are you one of those people that drive around with a mask on?
No, I don't.
Absolutely not.
I
That's
don't.
the
I don't.
stupidest thing
Yeah,
I've ever
I
seen in my
don't.
life.
I see
don't.
people driving with the mask on.
Sorry, Bobby.
By yourself in your car.
Do you think they forget? Do you think maybe some of the people just forget they have it on? Is that possible?
Some might.
and they're driving around with gloves on their hands.
Crazy,
What-
bro.
what-
Right, the
are you
same gloves.
doing?
The same gloves that they
Gloves that
just
they
touched
just
their
did
shopping
shopping.
cart with.
Yeah.
And now they're touching the steering wheel
Yeah.
and their
Yeah.
gear shift and
Yeah.
their radio knob.
Yeah.
And then later when they go out, they're not wearing gloves and they're going to touch all that same shit. And
Yeah.
that's what I don't understand.
Right.
I don't
Right?
I don't understand it either.
Right.
Joe, how many times have you driven by Buttonwood Park and seen
Oh, my
people
God.
walking
Every
around the
time.
park by themselves in the fresh air with a mask
With mask on.
on?
You know
What is the purpose?
Right.
You know what drives me nuts, and I could see it already. So everything's closing down, and Steve, I live right next to the beach. So every time I'm driving home and I'm driving by the beach,
Boy, this guy's getting
I
haircuts
see-
and he lives next to the beach. Boy, who's got the good
I
life?
see.
Hey, I got a haircut too,
tons
man.
of people just walking around. So this
Yeah.
is going to be the hot spot in the summer. Now you're going to tell people they can't go.
Right.
They can't go to the beach. That's when I'm telling you that people are going to say
And I
enough
think,
is enough.
and I think the beach
I'm
is a
gonna do
fair
what I
place.
want.
That's a fair, like they say golf too, same thing. Which brings us full circle, and it's another topic that I wanted to discuss, and it's about sports, right? Like guys, I know I'm a fan. I'm a sports fan. Joe, I know you're a sports fan. Steve, you're a sports fan as well, right? I mean, I know you're not diehard, but you're a huge sports
Yeah,
fan
no,
as
I'm
well,
not
right?
diehard like you two, but
Yeah.
yeah, I like to watch.
Yeah,
sports.
so even with that said, like you think right now, I mean, they just opened golf, like so now you can go and you can play golf, which I think is fair because what's more social distancing than golf, right? I mean,
Can I ask you a question, though,
fishing,
Bobby?
fishing is more
yeah,
social
fishing too.
distance
You're
than
right.
anything.
Yeah,
Can I ask you a question about golf?
Sure.
Because the actual mandate for golf in the state of Massachusetts is golf courses are open, but you can't use a golf cart.
Right. So yeah,
Or a
two
push
people.
cart.
Yeah, you can use the push
Is
cart.
is there a point to that?
Well, I mean, I've gone golfing and I've walked it.
Yeah, this. You know what? On a good day.
Joe, I've walked it too, but my point is,
Yeah, you had
what
choice.
is the difference
It was your
if
choice.
I walk
You
the golf
chose.
course
You chose it
or if I jump in a little car?
because you're not sitting next to somebody.
Because you're sitting right next
Yeah,
to somebody.
You're sitting right next to
Oh,
somebody.
the same guy that I'm sitting next to on the putting green.
And the same guy you're sitting next to probably in the vehicle.
And the
You
guy
both
that
drove together.
whose ball you just picked up because it was next to
Yeah.
yours. That guy.
Right.
Yeah, that guy.
This is the ludicrousness that I'm talking about.
Right.
Like it makes no sense. It's like, all right, we're gonna shut down the world except Walmart, Home Depot, and Lowe's, right? Those can remain open. And then you can go and pick up the same hammer that guy just put down. No big deal. But
Right.
God forbid you go to the local small business guy to do your shopping. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Right.
Either you shut it down or you don't.
Right.
You can't have, there's no in between.
And where do you stand, Steve? You right now, you're like open it, Right? Is that how you feel? Like, just open it.
Absolutely.
Done. Open it.
Absolutely.
Joe,
At this
you
point-
you feel the same way, Joe?
I'm agreeing with him.
Yeah.
At this point, we know enough about this virus that just
You know, and
open it up.
Dude, we've been
Yeah, and you know what,
shut
guys?
down for 2 months.
And just so the
We have
audience
been
knows,
shut down for 2 months.
And-
If
yeah.
they have not gotten a handle on this in the 2 months, they're not going to.
And
And,
just-
it
and just to
isn't
be
me
fair-
sitting at home. It's not going to be us sitting at home that's going to help them get a handle on it.
right? And
Well,
just to be
look
fair,
at Cuomo. Didn't he come out just, what was it, yesterday or a couple of days ago?
Who the hell is
Recently.
Cuomo?
Cuomo.
Oh, Cuomo.
Yeah.
Cuomo, yeah. So,
it's all right.
So
I knew what
listen.
he meant. I knew what he meant.
so listen, he comes out and he says, 66% of the people
Scallops.
that are contracting this virus, he doesn't understand because they're all staying at home. What he's
Right.
out of touch
Now
with
they're coming
is
out.
all
Right.
these people are still,
Right.
yes, granted, they're staying home. They're not going to work.
Yeah.
They're not doing,
Well, why would they go
whatever.
to work? You make more money to stay home than you do going to work,
right.
right?
But they're still going to the grocery stores.
I'm all right with a layoff.
They're
Yeah,
still
well.
going to the grocery stores.
Yes, and they're still going to the
They're still-
pharmacies.
They're still going
yes.
out. Well, don't you understand how it's happening?
That's what I'm
Like,
talking
I don't
about. So
understand
isn't
how
that
he could be baffled that it's happening.
The
to
transmission
people that
is
are staying
perfect?
home.
Joe, that's a perfect point to what I was saying, right? So
Yeah.
he comes out now and he says 60% of our new cases in the last, 2 weeks have been people that have been out of work. They've been social distancing. They've been locked in their house.
Watching Tiger King.
60%. So 60% of these people are the ones that are getting sick now that they're coming back out. Doesn't that tell you something?
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
And in all fairness,
It
and I
does
want the
not.
audience.
People are not going to stay
Yeah,
home.
and I want
That's
the audience to
thing.
know. I want the audience to know, and it's only fair. Both of you have very strong opinions, and which I appreciate. But you also, what's fair to say, you both have children, and you both have young children. So
Yes.
your opinions are fair in this. I just want to make it clear. Your opinion is very fair in this arena because you have just as much to lose as someone else. You guys aren't just talking. You guys aren't single guys living in an apartment by yourselves. You both have families, and the risk is there. So I just want everybody to be aware.
My parents, like your mom, Bobby,
Yep.
and Joe's parents are elderly, right? I have young children. My wife, I have contact with my wife's grandmother, who's
Yep.
elderly. Like, it's not. I'm not some single dude out here going, "Oh yeah,
Right.
open it up."
Right.
No, but you can't. A country cannot operate. Its economy cannot operate when we are paying people literally more to stay home, than we are for them to work.
Businesses can't open because the employees are not returning. They're not returning to work. So I heard, and then, listen, I won't confirm this, but I will tell you, I was speaking to someone whose opinion I value and trust, and this individual told me that in their business that they currently are working a 4-day work week. So their employees are coming to work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And on the Friday, they're actually putting a claim in to unemployment for the 5th day. Did you guys know by opening that claim on the 5th day, so they're working 4 days being compensated, they open the claim on the 5th day, do you know that they're still receiving the $600?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
If you receive 1 hour
Oh,
of
my.
unemployment, you get that $600.
Right? I mean, right? I mean, how crazy is that, guys? How did not somebody think of that? How is that possible?
But Bobby, tell me how that is fair,
Right.
and not just because we're considered essential, right? But tell me how that is fair to you, who still has to go to work
Every day, brother. I have not missed a day
Right.
of work since it started.
Absolutely, right? How is that to the police, to the fire,
Yep.
to the EMS,
Yep.
to the nurses, to the doctors,
Yep.
to the people at the grocery store, to the
Yep.
guy at the Home Depot,
Yep.
who are considered essential
Essential,
and have
right.
to report to work? How is it fair to them?
Or your
that
cable
all these
guy.
I was going to say,
Yeah,
your
what
utilities
about your
guy,
cable guy?
your cable
Well,
guy.
no,
yeah.
that's what I said. I said us, not just because
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
considered
yeah.
essential,
Yeah.
but all these other people as well. How is that fair that you're paying these people literally more
To
to stay at home than you're making when you're physically going out there
Right.
and increasing the risk to yourself?
And
What do you
to-
mean?
and-
You don't appreciate the commercials about us?
Right. And to
Yeah.
reiterate
Yeah.
what Joe
You know what's
mentioned.
funny, Joe? You mentioned the commercials. My daughters saw a commercial the other day, and they're like, "Oh, Daddy, are they gonna interview you for the commercial?" I said, "No, honey, they don't want to interview me because that's not what I would say."
No.
Yeah, dude, you're the last person on that list, man.
Right?
If they came to me and said, "Hey, listen, pick one," I'd be like, "It's definitely not Steve."
Hey, your internet provider. I'm just surprised they haven't even thanked the internet provider. Without us, really, you would not be able to do your Zooms.
Everything stops, dude. Everything,
Your
like I
meetings.
mentioned it
You're
earlier,
working
everything
from
stops.
home.
Yeah, everything stops.
Yeah.
Everything stops.
You're working from home. It
Yep.
all starts with us.
Yep, it really
We're all
does.
dependent on it now, and it's But it's crazy that, listen, and I get it, man. People are out of work. The government forced them out of work for this shutdown. And I get it. All right. So they can collect unemployment. All right. I get it. But man, there's got to be some, like, what's the incentive for me to get up and go to work in the morning?
You got to pull the nipple away. You can only suck on the nipple for so long. And I think it's gotten to that point where, listen, they're going to run this until it dries out. That's really what they're going to do. And my biggest fear here, guys, is who's going to pay that money back? I mentioned it in the beginning of the podcast. We talked about
who's going to pay for it? Me.
There it is. There it is.
My kids.
Yep.
My kids.
Yep.
And Steve's kids.
Let me ask you a question. So let me ask you another question, right? Why do you think that the voice for keeping this shut down longer, where do you think that voice is coming from? Do you think it's coming from the people that are having to go to work every day? Or do you think it's coming from the people who are sitting at home collecting that extra money every week? If I was at home collecting, I'd be like, nah, close it down.
Leave it alone. Don't touch it. Leave it alone.
Dude, they only got until July, Steve. July 31st, that extra $600 runs out.
Right.
Well, but hey, I'd be stupid not to try and suck up that
to go
until the end of July.
To go to the last day.
But here's the thing. Yep. Now, when stores and these companies start opening back up, and you're on unemployment, and they call you and say, "Hey, come back to work." Now you're going back to work to make less. Yes. I think what's going to happen is you're going to have a lot of people staying on unemployment and losing their jobs.
Well, I think there should be some kind of fail-safe in there that says
that company should
be calling up the state and saying, listen, we called them back. They didn't want to come back. I think, and unemployment should be cut off. Right. Because at that point, they're not unemployed.
You wonder.
At that point, they're not unemployed. They're willing non-participants.
Yeah. Right. But again, guys,
and you know what? Do that.
And it seems like we're in this vicious cycle, and it's like it's this revolving door that just keeps cycling in circles, and you wonder. Again, people that probably weren't even making this kind of money, right? If you worked a part-time job, you worked at McDonald's or you worked at the corner store, and you were making a $200 paycheck, and all of a sudden you get an $800 paycheck. I mean, the motivation to get out of the house, to your point, Steve, is absolutely none. Like nobody's going anywhere.
Absolutely,
right?
Hey, guy, this is how you create a welfare state. Yep. This is exactly what they've done. They know exactly what they're doing, and they've done it.
Socialism. And this would be considered socialism. That's right. I mean, if you were to look at socialism,
that's exactly what it is.
Right.
This is what we're all experiencing right now. There's a little taste of socialism. Right. Standing in lines, waiting at the grocery store.
Yep.
People out there.
You can only buy one roll of toilet paper today.
Now you can, but in the patent, when this whole thing started, people were out there hoarding. Crazy.
Yeah.
You got people still hoarding.
Right.
I don't understand.
And it's funny. The wife and I have been in the market for a freezer for a long time, and it's always been one of those things that we wanted, but just never pulled the trigger. So of course, with all this going on, and the wife going, "Oh, listen, there's going to be a meat shortage, and we should really get a freezer." I'm like, "All right, let's bite the bullet. We'll spend the $500. We'll get one, bro. I can't find one. Like nobody has.
They already thought of it.
Gone, bro. They are absolutely. Listen, I challenge anybody after you're done listening to the podcast, go on Google and type in freezer. Like nobody on the planet has freezers for sale. Nobody. It's the same thing as the toilet paper. As soon as people heard that there might be, the Tyson food plants, they had the corona there, and a lot of people were sick. And as soon as they heard, hey, listen, meat shortage, like people went crazy, and now it's the meat thing. So no more of the toilet paper. Now it's you're not going to have enough meat, and you're going to go hungry.
No, listen, I went to Stop and Shop yesterday morning, right here, right near my house, right? I go to Stop and Shop. I needed to pick up a couple of burgers. And, dude, there was no meat. There was no meat.
Crazy.
There was not one package of meat on the shelves. Meat or chicken. There was nothing.
Do you think that's
nothing.
because
it was
of
empty?
Do you think
there
that's
was a
supply?
lady there screaming at the butcher?
Do you think that's a supply issue or a hoarding issue? So do you think it's Stop and Shop? Right, they're still getting this. Right, they're still getting the same amount of supply, but people are going there and just buying them out.
No, it is a supply issue.
So it's a supply issue.
The meats is a supply issue now.
It is a supply issue, absolutely.
But as far as
I don't know why
finding it on the shelves. So soon?
Well, because I think a lot of the meats came from overseas too. To be honest with you.
Yeah, they say that pork, right? We import a lot of pork from China.
I think there was a lot of meats coming from overseas, and now there's a shortage because of all the tariffs, and it's crazy. Because somebody was telling me a story the other day about how they it was my daughter's friend. She was telling me that like her parents have a boat. They live on a lake, and they were probably I think it was tomorrow. For Mother's Day, they were gonna have like a little barbecue type of deal there, like with the family and stuff. And so they wanted to buy, I think it was chicken or something to cook on the grill or whatever. They went to the restaurant, like, because it was going to be pre-catered, and the restaurant would not sell them more than like whatever it was, like 4 sandwiches or whatever the hell it was, because there's such a shortage that they can't get the meat.
Crazy, man.
It's ridiculous.
Crazy.
Well, you know what? I talked to my cousin last month, and I was asking him, because he lives out in Texas, asking him how it is out there and stuff. And he was telling me this last month that he's like, dude, you can't get more than a burger. He goes, you can't get more than one hamburger if you go into like McDonald's or Burger King. They won't allow you to buy more than one hamburger.
Wow.
And then this was last month before the whole meat shortage
Even started. Right.
You know, so it was already starting to affect them down there. So
that's amazing. You know, and it's funny, Steve, you know, you mentioned it, and I'm going to jump all over it because I want to remind the fans, tomorrow's Mother's Day, right? So if you haven't yet, I mean, like, you got a couple of hours, maybe get to CVS or maybe Walmart or something and go get a card, go get some flowers, go do something. But just in case you didn't know, I mean, it's Mother's Day tomorrow, right? You guys got big plans for tomorrow? Anything going on?
Yeah, it's called working.
No kidding.
I got to go to work.
That's
tomorrow.
right, yeah, because you do work.
Yeah, I work Sunday.
How about you, Steve?
I'll be right here in my house.
Nice, celebrating the day
with my wife, my kids. Probably step out real quick, go see my mom, and the majority it'll be here for my wife.
So
anyways.
what I think everybody should do, this is just my suggestion, is go over to Etsy. You know what I mean? If you haven't done so already, go over at www.etsy.com/shop/the Bobby Couto Show and go get a t-shirt, right? Go get a t-shirt, go get a mug, right? Go get something for your mom, right? Or your wife.
Masks? You selling masks?
Not yet. I should. I should. I should get on that.
Couto
Right?
Show mask.
Damn, man. What was I thinking? Right? I got to get in on that. I think we're onto something, guys. Let's do it.
You better, dude, because at this rate, we might be wearing masks for another year.
Right? But either way, you should go over. I know you guys have been over to Etsy, and you guys have bought the gear. It's good stuff. Go over, go check it out. You're supporting the show.
Good quality.
Right? You're
good
keeping
quality.
this going. I mean, listen, I don't care where you're going to listen to your podcast. Nobody else is talking about this shit, and they're not talking about it the way that we are. And the fact that, you know, honestly, fortunately, the three of us live in Massachusetts. And just, I think, living in Massachusetts, being where we are, it does make a difference. I really do believe that. I believe that we are in the if you had to call it the neural central of all of this, man, I think we are. I mean, you think of the amount of people and demographics that we have in our environment, right? Just alone, between, you know, immigration, between the people that live here, between, you know, that liberal side, that conservative side. I think that as a melting pot, Boston, Massachusetts, all of our surrounding that's what we are. And fortunately, we can have these conversations and we can talk about these topics, but a lot of people are not. And unfortunately, if they're having these conversations, man, they're all one-sided. Like, there's no room for conversation. It's, this is the way it is, and this is why, and there's no description or explanation, but yet these people are pushing a narrative that only works in their best interest. And the fact that we can come on here and I can have you guys, which I'm absolutely humbled and grateful that you guys are here, and we can have these conversations. And a lot of these conversations are not easy. These are not easy conversations to have, but they are conversations that we need to have. And if there's one thing I always talk about on the podcast, it's about, that's what the show is about. It's about the message. It's about, you know, what is going around us, and can we continue to have the conversation without throwing rocks at one another, right? That's where I think we need to find. And unfortunately, you know, if you were watching the news last week, the State House, all those people, they all went into the State House and they're all protesting, and that's fine. You can protest those things. But when you actually look at the conversations that are taking place, so you got one woman in a wheelchair, right? And she's screaming why the man shouldn't be there. And then you got a guy holding a gun with a half mask on, screaming at her, telling her why he should be there. And at the end of the day, how do you win in all that? There's no conversation taking place. It's just two illogical people having an illogical argument. I'm talking about sitting here having an intelligent, fair conversation about these situations that, quite honestly, guys, it's pretty scary.
Did you see? There's a video out there. I don't know if any of you guys seen it with a Marine that physically got up with the microphone and talked to these police officers. And would you not, I'm telling you right now, this Marine talked them sense into them, saying, hey, we're out here protesting. What are you doing?
Right.
What are you doing? He literally, all these police officers, at least 100 of them, standing in line protecting the State House, all turned their backs and left.
There you go.
They all left
Right.
with this
Right.
Marine giving his message
Yep.
to them, saying, "What are you
Where
doing?"
was that, Joe?
California.
No kidding.
It was in Cali.
It was in California. I'll send you. I'll
Yeah,
send you a
and-
YouTube
and-
video.
right? And so there you go, and that's proof positive, bro, that we need to talk about these things, right?
Now, one person gets up and
Yep.
talks to these police officers and
Yep.
talks some sense into
Some
them. going,
logic,
hey, listen,
right? Some logic. Yep.
I understand you got to make money, but you got to understand these people that you're protecting is stealing our liberty. Like, what are you doing? At the end of the day, you got to make the decision.
Yep.
For you, your family, and your kids, they're paying you. You're making a paycheck, but what about the rest of us out here?
Right,
And
you're
literally,
standing
they
here,
all
you're
got
working,
down
right? The
and
state is
left.
paying you to stay here and protect the state house. Meanwhile, I'm standing here telling you that I want to go back to work. I want to go earn a
Right.
living, right? I want to go back to my job, right? That's
right.
yeah. I mean, literally, when you look at the
And
contrast
they
there,
turned their backs
Yep.
and they all walked away.
I'm gonna have to check
Every
that out,
single
man.
cop.
You're gonna have to send that to me.
I'll send you that link.
Yeah, that'd be cool. If you send it to me, and then of course I'll share it with the audience. We'll put it on the BobbyCoutoShow.com, and you guys can go in there and check that out. Because if you haven't gone, BobbyCoutoShow.com, go check it out. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Anything that we talk about here, anything that we talk about on the show, I try to make it as easy and accessible on all the media platforms. And I always, always, always encourage the audience and everyone and the fans, reach out, let me know what you think, let me know how you feel, and I'll share that with everybody. Because it's not just you, it's not just me. I mean, you have to stop and think. There's no way that I went out and found two people, right, and that are like-minded, and that we can honestly, you know what, I can say that we can sit here, the three of us, we're like-minded individuals, but we all have different situations in our lives, but somehow we're coming to the same conclusions here. Like we're coming to the same idea that, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't add up. Like something's not making sense here. You're telling me one thing, I'm doing another, I'm trying to do what you're telling me because you're telling me it's going to help, but at the end of the day, it doesn't seem to be making a difference. So we can continue to do what we're doing, or to the point of what Steve was saying, you can fight the system and say, listen, don't piss on my head and tell me it's raining. I need to know the truth, and I feel that at least if I have the right information, then I can fight the right fight. You know what I mean? And I think that's where we're at right now. No, not to get all off on that, and I think, honestly, that's probably the best conversation I've ever had about this situation up until this point, and I really appreciate both your inputs. But I got to ask you this question. How do you guys feel, right? This is a serious issue. How do you guys feel about the murder hornets? Have you seen these things? Have you seen these things?
I'm allergic to bees.
Dude, you're screwed. You're screwed. You're
Hey,
screwed.
listen, I'll tell you a story right now, right? Happened to me around this time of last year. I come back from work because of a rotator cuff injury. I shit you not. A month back in, all of a sudden I go to a customer's house. I pull up early in the morning, Sunday morning. I go into their house. All right, you got a back box. I come out. I go to my truck. I parked right under a hornet's nest in a tree. It was like a cartoon. You ever seen the cartoons where the bees are chasing the person?
Yes.
Like a swarm, like a big
A
cloud.
swarm. All I saw was a big, like all these black. It looked like. People have got the background with the bees. Yeah. All of a sudden, I hear that, and I see around my truck there's just like this big black, like ball almost.
Oh.
And as I'm getting closer to my truck, all of a sudden, I get nailed right in my neck.
Oh.
And then all of a sudden, they all swarm right at me. I got stung so many times.
Do you carry
You know,
an EpiPen? Do you have an EpiPen with you?
Here's the thing. The EpiPen's in my truck.
Oh my god.
That's not good.
My inhaler is in the truck.
Jesus.
I dropped everything right there, just barged right into back into the customer's house. I'm like, listen.
I'm under attack. I'm under
I'm not-
attack.
Listen, the customer goes out, she grabs this wasp can of Raid.
Oh.
I'm like, that ain't gonna do anything. I'm trying to tell her, that ain't gonna do anything. You know, she's like, oh, maybe it'll get rid of some of them. I said, listen, there is at least 50 to 100 bees out there. So she goes out there and she gets like halfway in the road and she runs back in because now they just sees her.
Wow.
So, long story short, I had to wait for my supervisor that was working that Sunday to bring me to the hospital so that way I could get treated.
Man.
So these murder hornets, man, I'm all done.
They actually said that they kill people. That they kill people. And of course, it's an Asian, right? It's an Asian. Again, I hate to keep pointing in that direction, guys, but What the hell,
Dude,
man?
the
Right?
Chinese are trying to kill us.
Seriously, it's like guerrilla warfare. Seriously, like murder hornets.
That was all made in a
Yeah, in a
they were
lab
produced
somewhere. I
in
watched
a
a video of this murder hornet attacking a mouse, and I tell you, it was the saddest thing I've ever seen in my life. Did you see that? Like the thing's trying to get away, and it was relentless. It wouldn't just leave it alone and take off. Like it was determined to take the mouse out, man. Like it just had that tenacity. It kept stinging it. And I'm saying to myself, man, imagine seeing something like 2 inches. They say they're 2 inches large coming at you, man. I don't know what you do, right? What do you do? What do you do with something like that? And they say if you have honeybees, like you're screwed because these things come in and they decapitate the honeybees and kill all the honeybees.
I saw that praying mantis is killing.
I saw that too. Yeah. But the difference in the praying mantis and the murder hornet, like they're like swarms, right? If you got one single praying mantis, he's screwed, right? It would take 2 murder hornets to take him out, and I guess that's the way that they attack. They attack in these swarms, and you can't fight them, man. How crazy is that? Right now we got bees that are attacking us, man. Like it's just one thing after another. And if you were in New England today, and Joey, I know you'll know, like fucking snow today.
Mowing the lawn.
Mowing the lawn in the snow, brother. Only in New England.
Coming, man.
Only in New England, brother. Right? It's like it's been written in here. It's been written, and the end is near. You know. But listen, guys. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but we are actually 2.5 hours into this podcast. And we talked about some really great stuff. Again, I am so grateful for you guys being here today. And I just know for a fact that this is going to be one of the best grossing podcasts that we publish. But before we go out, I wanted to talk about some fun stuff real quick. And I ended up collecting 10 ethical questions. And I thought, how cool would it be to ask these questions and kind of get your opinion? And not to mention the audience would also get a good feel for who you guys are and how you react to these things, right? So, listen, I'm not holding you guys to this.
Do they really want to know who Steve is?
Right? I think we're going to find out. So, question one. You ready for this? Okay, this is 10 ethical questions. So, if something at a yard sale is far more valuable than the posted price, do you tell the seller or do you pay the 50 cents and run with it?
I run with it.
I run with it. You know that.
Run with it. See, to me, it would depend. It depends who's selling it. Like, I think if it was somebody like elderly who didn't know any wiser, I might.
Or a little kid. Or
right? Yeah. I think if
Yeah.
it's somebody in the middle, I'm walking away with what I want. But if it's somebody older or younger, I'm probably going to let them know. How about you, Steve?
I'm walking away with it.
Doesn't matter who it is?
That doesn't matter, dude. You should do your research if you're going to be selling.
I love it. All right, here's another one.
Sorry, man.
Is this considered stealing, right? Pens from a bank, napkins from a fast food restaurant. Is that considered stealing?
No.
You don't think so?
They put them there for you.
Okay. Yeah. So you take a napkin or two, right? You eat your food, and then on your way out the door, you grab a handful of napkins and walk out the door. Is that stealing?
No. I paid enough for that fast food. Trust me.
All right. I kind of feel the same way you do on that one. All right. So if a charity this is a good one. If a charity sends you the free address labels, we've all gotten them, right? The labels with your name on them, right? And the address.
Oh yeah.
All right. If you get those in the mail and you don't make a contribution, is it still okay to use them?
Yes.
Yeah, sure, why not?
You sent them to me. What am I going to do? Throw them away? What a waste.
Right.
I'm with you on that. What a waste, right? If I don't use them, then I'm making it even worse, right?
Right.
That's a good one. Is it unfair to move to better seats at a sporting event or a concert?
No.
So you're sitting up high. You look down. You see there's an empty seat down there, and you go down and you take it.
I'm moving.
How about you, Steve?
I'd probably take it too.
Listen, I've done it at baseball games, at Red Sox games. Yeah. I've sat there.
Have you ever been thrown out? Have you ever been thrown out of the seat?
No, because what I'll usually do is wait like 2 innings, 3 innings.
Yeah.
Nobody's sitting there. Chances are you ain't coming. I'm moving down.
Yeah, see, I would do it, but I've always been afraid to be embarrassed by it. You know what I mean? Like, I hate to be the guy sitting in that seat, and then all of a sudden the usher comes over and goes, excuse me, sir. Could you show me your ticket, please? Like,
They don't do that. They don't do that at sporting events. The only time you're going to see that is when the person that actually has the ticket come over and say, hey, I think you're sitting in my seat.
Right, all right.
They really don't have
Here's one for you.
more like ushers checking.
If someone tells an offensive joke, is it your responsibility to speak up about it? Would you say something? No, you wouldn't, Joe?
No, because what's offensive to me may not be offensive to somebody
What if
else.
it's an obvious offensive joke?
But then again, in the society we live in now, everything is offensive. So,
right,
like, who determines offensive or not?
Right.
What if it's completely like egregious? somebody says a rape joke in front of a woman, and you can clearly see that she's offended by it. Do you say something?
Probably.
Yeah.
Like if it's,
be like, hey,
I
listen,
guess.
man, it's not,
I'd be like, yeah, dude, that's not good. Like, shut up.
Yeah,
I mean, there's limits
I'm
to
kind
things.
of, yes,
but
and I'm with you. I think it has to cross that line. If you cross that line that I feel I need to say something, then I probably will. And maybe that's the manager in me. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? And having someone say something that I kind of felt like it's obligation of my position to be like, hey man, that wasn't cool to say that. That was a little inappropriate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
A little out of
Especially
line.
right. Even if you knew something about that person and you made a joke. Here's another one for you. Is it ever okay to sneak peek at your children's email?
how old are my children?
Steve, yeah, you got a range, Steve, right? You got both ends of the spectrum there. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I got a 25-year-old,
Yep.
so no, I will not be looking at her emails.
Okay.
But I also have a 10-year-old.
Yep.
Yes, I will be.
So you have an age
As a
limit.
matter of fact, I do.
So there's an age limit there. So at what age do you think it's no longer appropriate to look at your kid's email?
Around 14, 15.
No, hell no. 18,
Right?
18 maybe. Listen, that's the age of consent, right?
Consent. Yes.
So at that point, you're an adult, so
Well, yeah.
That's a good one,
But
no?
still, at the same time, they still need their privacy.
Yes, I agree.
listen, dude. But all right. So Joe, so you have a 16-year-old. I know you have a daughter. I know she's not 16, but say your daughter's 16, right? And some jerk off is sending her inappropriate shit, right? Like you don't want to know that. I do.
No,
That's just me. You know what I mean?
That's a tough one, guys, because wouldn't you like to think that maybe your kid would tell you about it?
At the same time, I already told her she can't date until she's 30.
There you go. Well, at least she
30.
At least she
That's
set
kind
the
of young, no?
That's young.
He's Portuguese, man. Did you forget? That's the ripe old age for Portuguese. If you're Portuguese, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's all right. That's okay. As long as you're Portuguese.
I still want grandchildren.
Right?
You know what I'm saying? And,
Do you really? Because I don't. I've had enough kids in my life.
Here's
I'm
one
all
I-
set.
no, that's a lot better, man. Because you know what? Hey, your kid's crying. Here you go.
There you go. Take them home.
Take them home.
You gotta go home. See you later.
See you later. Thanks for visiting. All right, I got one more.
Thank you for
We'll close
coming.
out with this one. My boss asked me to cover for them in their expense report by saying I was at a lunch meeting with them when I wasn't. Would you lie for him?
No.
No.
Yeah, me neither. Me neither.
Well,
Screw
let
you.
me say, if it was you, Bobby, I think about it.
Nice, bro. I
Oh,
appreciate
here we
that.
go.
I know. I appreciate
You know?
that, brother. Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate
There
that.
hasn't been
Here we
a
go.
husband like you in the building. I could just tell you that much.
But by the same token, you know that I would probably never ask. I would never ask you to do that. That's probably why that's the answer, because I would never ask you to do. But that's a good one though. How many times does that happen, right? Where you might work for somebody and they may be like, hey, listen, man, I need you to cover for me, right? I mean, and you have to make that decision, right? Whether or not you're gonna.
Right.
And imagine the adverse effects of that. One, you don't do it, you're busting you're an asshole, and now they got it out for you, or vice versa. You go ahead and do it, and now you lose your job because.
Exactly. And
Right?
then that's tarnished on your.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
All
What
right.
job is
Yeah,
gonna
because
hire you?
with my luck, the way it would happen is it would bite me in the ass, but not him.
Exactly.
Right.
Murphy's Law. All right, so here's a couple of quick ones for you. Ready? Will religion ever become obsolete?
No.
Steve?
See, I kind of think it already is, to be honest with you. So
I think it's
that's
on
kind
its
of my
way.
opinion on
I
it.
think it's on its way. Although, again, religion was a big part of my life growing up. Like I said, I mentioned earlier, I'm Portuguese, so there was a crucifix in every room in my house. And
Well,
Absolutely.
you said religion.
yes,
Religion will always be around.
you don't think it'll ever be obsolete?
What kind of religion you talking?
Let's just say Catholicism. Let's talk about Catholicism.
Oh,
Do you think that
I think
Catholicism will ever cease
Catholicism
to
has
exist?
been obsolete for about 20 years.
Well, if you go to the Vatican, bro, they're still making a lot of money over there,
Oh,
right?
of course they are. That's the only reason that it's still around is because they're the wealthiest
They are.
organization in the world.
Well, no other organization could molest children and still be in operation. Only.
Absolutely not.
You know what I mean? If McDonald's was raping kids with Happy Meals, then McDonald's would cease to exist. I mean, that's just the bottom line.
Absolutely.
And you wouldn't have the ability to pay off these people and put gag orders on them because you don't want the truth to come out. So, but again,
Absolutely.
that's a whole other conversation. Maybe the next
So
podcast.
I'll say this, Bobby. What I think is keeping Catholicism alive is the older generation. I think once the older generation dies off, it's done. I will say this, unless they make some drastic changes to some of their policies,
Yep.
Gay rights, the priests being able to marry,
Yep.
stuff like that, unless they make some drastic changes, I think once the older generation is gone, the Catholic Church is also gone.
And it's funny you say that because you can almost kind of see it in the generations of us. I mean, again, growing up Portuguese, the Catholic religion was a big part of our lives, the feasts, the sun, you know what I mean? Like the Sunday church, like all of that was really relevant and it was daily. Now, that's very rare. It really doesn't happen. And again, you wonder of that generation kind of dying off and the new generation not having a need for religion, right? Because
it's going to be even it's going to be even worse this year because all the feasts are canceled already. So
everything's canceled. Yeah.
What are you going to do? You know what I mean?
Oh, so moving on, here's another one for you guys. Is intelligence or wisdom more useful?
Wisdom.
Yeah, wisdom.
But see, I can
because I'll be straight up honest with you.
Yep.
I know a lot of intelligent people.
Steve, you're going to be honest, bro.
Right? I know a lot of intelligent people that couldn't find their way out of a wet paper bag. No common sense whatsoever.
How many?
So you can be as smart as a whip and know everything in all these books, but if you don't know how to interact on a daily, you know what I'm saying? Like if you don't have any common sense.
But with wisdom,
how many
times have you guys always said, "Man, if I knew now,
what I knew then." Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, what I knew then, if I knew then, what I know now. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, the problem with that, guys, is with wisdom. The only way you can gain wisdom is by time, right? Time and mistakes. So
not necessarily,
right? Or research it. Research
wisdom can be passed down.
Yes.
Like you know what I mean? Like my father's wisdom, if he teaches me correctly.
Yep.
His wisdom can be passed down to me.
And you choose to apply that. That's a good point, Steve. I didn't even look at it that. I didn't even look at it from that point of view.
You know what I mean?
That's
the majority of wisdom is acquired through experience, clearly.
Yep.
But wisdom, intelligence can't necessarily be passed down.
I can teach you math, but I can't teach you how to be a good person.
Right.
Right. I mean, right. It's in that kind of sense where you and I could sit and I could teach you 2 + 2 = 4. But if I sat and told you the story of the time that I fell off my bike and scraped my knee, that wisdom is going to help you in your future life. Agreed?
Absolutely.
Right.
You're going to be more careful when you're riding your bike, right?
And here's the last one. This is a good one. How replaceable are you?
To who?
Right?
Wait, to who?
Right? No, in the general, like ask that question. Ask yourself that question. How replaceable am I? And I think you could apply that in every aspect of your life, whether it be personal.
All right, so let's go down the list.
Yep.
How replaceable am I to my employer? I don't even exist to them.
Guys, I'm proof positive that in 5 minutes they can replace you.
There you go. How replaceable am I to my children?
There you go.
I don't think I am.
You're good at this game.
I really
Steve.
don't think I am.
Steve, you're really good at this game. I like it.
You can't be. In general, you could be replaced, but as far as a family, you having a wife and children, you're irreplaceable.
Right. And I would
Oh no, don't get me wrong. My wife will replace me. But I don't think my kids can.
Mine too, brother. Mine too.
That's true.
So, but I guess the trick in the question is really how much have you applied yourself in life, right? Because the more involved you are in helping others, right? I mean, that's right. Really where that kind of if you do nothing, right? If you just sit home and do nothing all day and you're staring out the window, then you could be replaced. But if every day you get up and you're helping save lives, or you're right, asserting yourself, then that increases the value and you're not as easily replaceable. Guys, that was fun, right? I mean, that was some cool, right?
Absolutely.
Something a little different, something a little think about, right? And listen, just real quick, guys, I'm gonna start to walk us out of here because we're gonna be looking at 3 hours on this podcast, and people are gonna be like driving off the road. But you guys watch? You guys, it is. And I was, dude, when you wrote that email, I'm like, he's absolutely right. Like it couldn't have been said any other better way. The greatest podcast. It really, really is. Are you guys watching TV at all? What are you guys watching?
Yeah, you know what?
I watch it.
Yeah.
I got little ones, so I got a 9-year-old.
Oh, so you're watching SpongeBob.
And my daughter's about to be 7. So
yeah. And I saw your boy learning the flute. Is that the flute? What is it? Is that a flute or is that a recorder? Recorder. He's pretty good.
No, Joe's doing Dance America or something over there with his daughter. That's what Joe's doing.
Yeah, he is. Yeah,
and
yeah.
my daughter will dance.
And Joe, you listen. Just if people want to go see that, it's Joe. What? Joe 11? Is it Joe 00011? Is that what it is on Instagram?
For Instagram?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Joe.
All right. And Steve, you are on Instagram. You are
SCFS_Steve.
You got to go
South
check.
Coast Firearm Safety _Steve.
And you got to go check these guys out if you haven't
Yeah,
done so already.
I'm
And anybody.
Joe 0111.
There you go, Joe 0111. And guys, listen, if you haven't written that down, just go into my Instagram. You guys can connect right through my Instagram and find these guys and see exactly what Steve's talking about. Because I would tell you, Joe, you're quite the dancer, brother. I see you doing that dance revolution, man, in front of the TV, brother. And I'm a little jealous, man. I can't like you got the moves,
He's got
bro.
the moves like
Right?
Jagger.
Guys, he does. He's cutting rug and everything, man. It's amazing.
Yeah.
How funny
Hey,
is that?
The things your daughter, your kids will make you do.
It's true,
You
bro.
absolutely do. Hey,
And you
you
would.
know what? You do everything she tells you to do. That's what you do.
Exactly.
That's how it works.
My wife tells me my daughter's got me wrapped around her finger.
Absolutely.
So true. And you can see Steve anytime. You can see Steve. You can see Joe dancing.
Like a night at the Roxbury.
Right,
baby.
right. There he is. Anyway, talking. I kind of got shifted, but TV guys. If you guys are watching TV, if you watch anything, I happen to just catch. Obviously, Tiger King. I just finished episode 7 on that, and all I got to say is that Carol's a whore. And Jeff's an asshole. Like that's what I'm saying in that. That's all I got to say about that.
Wait a minute. Do not call Jeff an asshole.
You don't think he's an asshole? You don't think he set him
Guy.
up? You don't think
He's
set him
got
up?
the hot wife and the nanny now.
He does.
Who's the asshole?
I know, right? I know. And it's not just a nanny, right? Like they're really good looking women. Let's just be fair and honest here.
Absolutely.
How old is he, dude? He's got to be in his like late 60s, right? 60s? He's got to be in his 60s. He plays it off good because he does the beanie.
Definitely at least in his upper 50s, I would say.
Yeah, close to his 60s, but he gets away with it because he wears the trendy clothes. He wears the baggy clothes, and he makes himself look younger. But then obviously the guy's got money, and he's got a hot wife who's now pregnant. They're having a kid, right? And then they had the kid, and now they got the nanny. And they're talking about doing a whole other series of the Tiger King, and that'll be interesting. But I'll tell you, man, I believe he
It's
said
funny because the nanny's hotter than the wife.
he told her. He says it in the episode. He says, "I told her she could have a nanny as long as I could pick her." Right, right.
But that's all right because they're swingers, so it's all good.
They are swingers, and all you need is a little pussy, and you can be a swinger, right? Because they got all the cats.
Absolutely.
They got all the cats,
Yep.
right? They got the cats.
Yep.
That's what they do. So if you guys haven't watched Tiger King, go check it out. I mean, that's like watching a car accident. It really is. Like once you start watching it, you can't stop watching it. It's amazing. And the other show I wanted to mention, guys, I don't know, and I know you guys will both know what I'm talking about. You guys remember Waco? That whole situation took place in
I saw
1993.
that.
Yeah.
Have you watched it on Netflix? Have you watched the
Yes. Yes.
I haven't watched it yet.
Bro, do yourself. It's absolutely
dude, you gotta watch
fantastic. It's what is it, like 5 or 6 episodes, I believe. It's not a huge
Yeah, I think
binge.
it's 6 episodes.
Six
Again, another binge watch.
It is a binge watch, and it's absolutely fantastic. I thought they did an amazing job with it. And if you remember when it happened, that was in 1993. I remember it happening, and I remember watching it on the news, but I had no idea the inner workings of what actually took place, man. At the end of the day, that was on April 19th of 1993. It was a 51-day standoff, and 75 people died, including 25 children, all at the hand of the FBI. It started with the ATF because
ATF. ATF was to blame for the whole thing.
Well, yeah, because they started it, but then the FBI.
The FBI was involved in it.
Yep.
Not the tail end. I mean, they came in right at the beginning.
Yep.
But the ATF is the one that caused it all.
Because they thought they were smuggling guns and stuff like that, right? Which I guess wasn't the case. I mean, they were referred to as the Davidians, and the leader's name was David. So you can and they were saying that they were gonna do a mass suicide, but none of that was true. I mean, it really, when you watch the story and you watch the movie, and I hope that it's all legit. Like I hope that the Waco movie or the series that I watched, I hope and pray that the information that they put forward is true. And if it is, bro, that's sad, man. What a sad, right?
It's pretty dead on because I've read like 2 or 3 books on it. See, I love history. I'm into that kind of I'm into.
Then you're on the right podcast, brother.
Like I love history, that kind of stuff. Like I've read books on that. I've read books on, the killing of Osama bin Laden and all that. Like I'm into that military type.
SEAL
history.
Team 6, right? You've read
Right,
that,
right? I'm into all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And all the books I've read are all say the same thing. And that series was dead on to the books.
So, I mean, I enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. There was a lot of stuff in there that I didn't know. And if I have to mention anything, I mean, rest in peace to all those innocent souls, man, that lost their lives. You know what I mean? They believed in something. They were doing their own thing, minding their own business. And somehow the federal government got involved. And what a tragic, tragic story. So if you have a chance and opportunity, get on there. It's on Netflix. Go check it out, The Waco Siege. And if you have any time, guys, I know a lot of us are spending some time on the internet and checking stuff out. You know, Steve and Joe, I just want to thank you guys so very, very much for joining the show today. Give you the opportunity right now. Listen, guys, is there any? I know, Steve. I know that you are the owner operator of SouthCoastFirearmsSafety.com, and I just want to let everybody know who's listening. If you guys
so that website no longer exists.
Oh, really?
Long story. I don't even want to get into it because bad host. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So, but I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook.
Yep.
You just search South Coast Firearm Safety.
Or
It's
they
all
can
there.
find you right through me. They can come to the Bobby Couto Show on Instagram, and you're there. They're going to find you. I mean, we're constantly communicating back and forth. So I guess my point is if anybody has any questions, Second Amendment, right? Second Amendment, so important, especially now in this climate. If you guys have any questions, concerns, going about getting your license to carry, how to, and I'll go back and say it again, Steve, you were very, very helpful when I went to fill out my application for my firearm. And Joe, I know that you also have your license to carry as well, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I know you'll agree. I mean, it's so helpful to know what to write down because, quite honestly, it really makes the difference. What you put on that application is really going to be the determining factor whether or not you're issued a license to carry, or you're going to get some ridiculous restriction that doesn't even allow you to carry your gun. You got to put it in the trunk, and then the ammos and this.
They don't do that.
Yeah, ridiculous stuff. So if you
some
have,
places still do.
yeah, some of them do. So, but if you have any questions, go reach out to Steve. See, Joe, you should be reaching out to Steve, man. You guys need to talk about this stuff, and it's
Well,
a perfect.
I thought in the state of Massachusetts that they can't hold you back to just boarding anymore.
No, they can. They
You
do.
know-
There's a lot of places. Boston.
Yeah.
Boston will. Pretty much anything around
How about
Boston
freaking
will.
Rhode Island?
Worcester's the same
Rhode
way.
Island wants nothing to do with me, man. I tried to apply in Rhode Island. They pretty much told me to go fuck myself. I couldn't do
Oh,
anything
good
with
luck.
Rhode Island. I got my
Yeah, it took me about 4 years to get my Rhode Island license.
No kidding. I got my New Hampshire license.
And I had to have some strings pulled
Yeah,
in order
yeah.
for me to even.
See, so all the more reason, so you know how to go about those things, and I know that you would be willing to offer that information to people. They just got to reach out and hit Steve up. And if you guys are going for your license to carry, I know that in Massachusetts it's an obligation. I can't speak for all states, but you do have to take a safety course. And Steve, you are NRA certified instructor to facilitate that safety course, correct?
Yes, I am.
So there you go. So all the more reason why you should reach out to Steve and check it out if you have any interest in that whatsoever. Joe, do you have anything you want to throw out there, brother? Is there anything you want to shine a light on?
No, not really.
Just that you're an awesome guy.
I'm just an average Joe. Just doing
He's
my,
just a dancer.
You're
9
not
to
just
5.
dude. You're not just an average Joe. You are the Joe. You are the Joe. All right. You are the Joe.
Yeah.
And not,
Just the new John Travolta.
there you go. I love it. John Travolta. That's hilarious. So, guys, listen, again, I just want to thank you very, very much. I mean, we're knocking on 3 hours here. If you haven't done so already, go check out The Bobby Couto Show on Patreon. Anchor.fm/The Bobby Couto Show /support. If you want to help support the show, obviously, Steve mentioned it and I'll mention it. This stuff isn't cheap. Like web hosting and podcast hosting, like this stuff, it all costs money. It's a reoccurring charge. And, granted, I'm carrying the burden because I love the podcast and I will continue to do this as long as I possibly can. But I always say it. If you guys are willing to support and help, I always appreciate it. And if you're not going to support the show, at least go over and support the Shriners Children's Hospital. If you're not going to give it here, go give it there because that's an organization that is doing amazing, amazing things for amazing, amazing people. Keep it in mind, loveshriners.org. It's an organization. They treat these children. The families go in there, and they don't pay a single dime for treatment for their children. And as a parent, and guys, I know you guys as parents, I mean, obviously, whenever you have a child in dire need of medical assistance. It's already scary enough to deal with those things, and then you have an organization like the Shriners that are helping alleviate some of those pressures on these families that have children with these debilitating illnesses that otherwise would probably go untreated. So if you're not going to go support the Bobby Couto Show, go over support the Shriners Children's Hospital. It's the least you can do for your fellow man. And outside of that, guys, I mentioned before, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, hit up the show, hit up Steve, hit up Joe, say hello, and show everybody that you got a voice. I mean, again, I always mention it, and I tell everyone, I'm not here to teach you anything. I'm just here to remind you, bringing people like Steve and Joe on the show I think solidifies that that's the message, that we're all out here, we're all trying to do the right thing, we're all working really, really, really hard, and just trying to make the right decisions that helps not only ourselves, but the people around us. With that said, I just want to say, Steve, thank you very much, sir, for joining the show.
My pleasure.
Joe, thank you, sir, very, very much for joining the show.
Hey, thank you.
And I want to say thank you all for listening and lending us your ear for just about 3 hours. And remember that I love you all equally. Most importantly, always remember that all roads lead here.